Yeah, man, we are live. It is Thursday night reality check, and I've got my most awesome special guest on tonight. That's Pat Stedman. Pat Stedman is a relationship expert. He is the world's foremost authority on hypergamy, that's for sure. And he is the rational man. Not the rational male. He is a rational man because we all know a male is just he's just a male is all he is. There's no type of identity really just to a male. So it's an immature man is really what it is. So I want to welcome Pat Stedman. Pat Stedman, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tony. Thank you so much for having me on again. It's my favorite show to be on. I look forward to this every couple of months when we tackle some new topics.
Yeah, we do. We got a great one tonight. I want to say hi to Primal Man. Primal Man, how you
Hey,
doing?
everybody. Hey, all is well here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on the panel tonight. And I will open up the live panel here after a while. So if anybody wants to ask Pat questions about girl game tonight. And this is a topic that I heard Pat mention this, probably at least a few months ago. And I have never heard really anybody talk about girl game. And to me, it really, I guess I would say it kind of sparks things in my head. Like, what is girl game? You know, what is it about? Is it manipulation? I guess it can be manipulation, but I'm going to go right to Pat and let's get right to it. Let's talk about girl game.
Yeah. So, I've had a couple of my own ideas, synthesized a bunch of stuff within the broader manosphere dating relationship community. But it is funny. I think that girl game was one of those things that when I talked about it, I'd never heard anybody else talk about it before. I think probably the closest thing that I had ever heard of it was way back when, if any of you, OGs remember, in the aftermath of the book, The Game, there was a book that came out for women called The Rules, which I never read, but it was supposed to be the answer to The Game. And I had a female friend who mentioned a couple of these things. Even that's not exactly right. But yes, per the comment that was just made, girl game is basically what do girls do to get guys to fall for them. And if you go into the broader red pill dating relationship community, pickup community, manosphere, the talk, if it comes to getting women, you have some guys who talk more about structural things in your favor, like you got to come from this community, you got to have this status, this looks, this money. Then you have other guys who focus more on game, but nobody seems to talk about how a woman can confuse a man's brain. And it's all offense, it's no defense. And I think that's because a man's disposition is towards how can I move forward? How can I go after a girl? How can I get her? But there's this massive blind spot in the community about what women do to throw men off. And I think most of the stuff that you see about frame and all this stuff, it's mostly like, I don't think it really gets the full picture. So I developed this term girl game to sort of talk about it. And I see it all the time with clients when they'll be out dating women and they'll totally fall for this girl. She's going to be the one, man. She's the one, right? Well, is she going to be the one? That's what girl game's all about, is diagnosing to what extent what a girl's doing is genuine and to what extent it's artifice. And the last thing I'll say is, to what extent is it game, but not bad game? Because let's be honest, as a guy, if you're attractive to women, you have some game, whether learned or natural. But what makes you like a manipulative guy isn't that you understand how to attract women, it's how do you use it, and to what extent the game is incongruent with this personality, right? To what extent it's an illusion. So I always tell guys when I teach them about girl game, and talk to my clients about this, you know, like, look, she's gaming you. It's a different question whether or not it's malintentioned, right? And that's something that has to be separately diagnosed, because if you have no girl game, it's like, well, you know, we're not going to add any seasoning to this dish. And I don't think you'd prefer to eat it. Guys like a little bit of game. That's a dirty secret. They like to be gamed a little bit. Anyway, so
what would you say is the most basic and the most obvious girl game?
sure.
Like I'm going to say your most popular girl game for a woman.
Well, let me take it a level deeper, because there's a lot of various tactics that it can come in. But the fundamental thing that girl game does, and this is the same thing that guy game does in the inverse, is that it plays to a man's ego. So a guy's game plays to a woman's ego, right? But girl game plays to a guy's ego. So how this might work in practice is that, you know, oh my God, you're so, you know, this is you're so big, right? Like, that's a very superficial version of it. And some girls, if they don't have very good game, they might be just say that it feels kind of fake. But, you know, to look at you, for a girl to stare at you and to just be like, I've never been anybody like you before, you know, like, this is like, I've just never felt more connected. You know, maybe she makes all these statements of vulnerability, like, you know, one of my favorite ones is the bird with the broken wing. You know, been hurt in the past, but it's very, you know, you make me feel very different. You know, obviously she's never come so hard before. That's another one. And you know, maybe she has all these compliments she's written about you. She got a list of things that she just wanted to say. Love bombing, yeah, there's aspects of that. Love bombing, that's an aspect of girl game. But the thing is, it's important to remember that it's not just necessarily like a individual sort of, it's not one thing that they do. It's woven together. And I think a lot of guys underestimate, well, look, I'll just say it bluntly. The more intelligent you are, the better you are at gaming. You know, that's true for men and women. But I don't think men are prepared as much to deal with how incredibly dangerous an intelligent woman who understands game is for a man. I mean, if she's hot and she's intelligent and she wants to game you, there is no end to the amount of stories that she can tell, the amount of things that she can say to get inside your head. And the thing about girl game is that it works to try to get into your ego, and maybe you have little defenses up there. So maybe in the beginning, it's this game of attrition. And the thing that's really dangerous about girl game is that a guy will usually, when he's being gamed, he's in denial about it because he thinks he has all the power. So one of the things that's very common is that, dude, she's so into me. Like I've never had a girl into me so much before. You know, there's this whole thing that, like, his ego's like, he's like the man. This hot girl's all about him. And I'm immediately like, watch out. Watch the fuck out, because you're about to get fucked. Because what happens is there's this attrition. She gets super, super close to him. And even if he's like talking like he's this, I don't know if I want to commit to her, I'm not sure, you know, but she's really into me. You know, he might make up all these things, tell these sort of stories, but she wears him down emotionally, even though he doesn't realize it. And then once he's addicted to her validation, there's the rug pull, right? Suddenly she's cold. Suddenly maybe she's not able to have sex anymore because she had a revelation from God that she can't have sex anymore, right? She's really trying. She feels like she's gone too far down that path, and she wants to try to be, she wants to have a relationship with you. She wants to be serious, but she doesn't want to.
She wants to slow things down.
Wants to slow things down, slow things down. It totally throws a guy off balance. And because he's so conditioned to believe her, because everything she said has validated him, he has a hard time believing that it's all bullshit. And of course, I'm right now, I'm talking about the really bad case scenarios, right? Where there's a desire to manipulate behind the scenes. To be fair, a lot of women, whenever there's any sort of interaction between a man and a woman in the beginning, there's a natural amount of gaming that goes on both sides. Both sides polarize the other side. So the guy acts a little bit more masculine, the girl acts a little bit more feminine. And that's not necessarily bad, right? Like the fact that she's maybe a little bit more expressive. It may not even be, and I'll say this, I think we all can agree upon this. With women, it's very difficult to even know to what extent when they do manipulate, they're consciously manipulating. Because women are very unconscious creatures. It's very much like they feel this way now. Maybe they didn't feel that way a couple of days ago. Of course, it could be because a new guy came into the picture that they changed their views on this. But the point is that in the very beginning, when a girl's making you feel good, it's a matter of like the proportionality. If it's really, as someone said, love bombing, if it's really, really pushed hard, it's an indication usually that it's just pure game. It's pure projection on her part. Whether she's conscious about trying to manipulate you, it's fantasy projection on her part. But yeah, you have to be careful with it. I think it's a rite of passage. I think pretty much every guy at some point gets burned by a woman who games them. So
what's most of the time is the prerogative of a woman using girl game? What is the prerogative? Could it be for things? I mean, a woman can, like you said, just you're the best thing, you're the greatest thing in the world, have sex with you, then pull back. Yeah. Did she not get what she wanted? Or is she just looking for control, power? Is that kind of it?
Well, I take things to the esoteric level, but to not go that far with it, it's an energy harvesting operation. So what she wants from the guy, she's looking for his attention and his validation. Female attraction, it's funny because game talks a lot about getting the woman to chase, getting the woman to be interested. It's kind of like using their own weapon against them in some ways, because on a natural level, it's the woman who's the object of desire, not the man. Man is the one who, the man is wanted by the woman, but the woman wants the man to desire her. And that's the pursuit, that's the chase. And that's what creates the feminine energy, is that the man pushes and that's the dance, right? So when you have when you have this sort of energy with a woman, and with this male game is kind of this inversion of it. A woman is trying to get the guy to commit to her, to get the guy, not necessarily like full on commitment, but to commit his desire to her. And so a lot of what we see in
with minimal effort, right, Pat? Like to get the guy to invest with minimal effort from her.
Well, ideally, right? But some women are, the thing about energy is that, and especially if you're an attractive woman, I mean, you got tons of guys who want you, right? And that's not difficult for these girls to get. It's not difficult for a girl to get one of these guys. So why would she go after it? Their energy, their attention doesn't really give them that much. So what they'll do is they'll go after a guy who's maybe a rung above them, who's got a little bit more aloofness, but there's a chink in his armor, right? There's some emotional wound there that he's protected himself from. Very often, these girls will go after guys who themselves are able to pick up women no problem. I mean, as you get higher up the food chain, because they can see, okay, this guy, it's kind of like a big game hunter. If I can take this guy down, I get a lot more of a feeding. And a lot of actually darker relationships revolve around the two parties kind of fucking each other over and over again. And when one of the parties tries to get past that, the connection between the two of them evaporates. But fundamentally, what women are looking for is energy from men. And so if a man has more energy, and of course, if he can attract other women, he's sort of pulling even more energy into him. It's a gravitational pull. She's going to want to try to get that guy. And so she might play a longer game to try to get him. So, so that's a lot of the mechanisms behind it. It is, you know, they may go after guys who are very, very naive and don't have a lot of experience with women. But I'm talking about the big game girls, the girls who are really, really good at what they do. They eat those guys for lunch so easily. They'll only go to them if they're really desperate for something. They'll like fall back on them because it's like an easy snack. They're always drawn to the challenge, just like men are too. I mean, let's flip it around. If you're a guy who's out to try to pick up women, you know, you're a pickup artist, you like the game. Well, there's I guess there's a couple pickup artists, some pickup artists who prefer to just kind of go for the notches, but most of them, it's kind of like this hunt, you know, it's this sense that I'm going to get a hotter girl. I'm going to get a girl who's further out of my reach. That's the draw of the game. And it's not any different for women. Of course, it's all externalizing, but that's neither here nor there. That's the game.
Well, I got a comment here. So Carly's telling don't overthink it. Well, let's just end the show now then. How about that? Let's just end it.
Yeah. Well, look, healthy people find one another organically. I mean, unhealthy people find each other organically as well. You attract what you are, but the reality is that most people aren't healthy.
That's right.
So I think that, and that's where the sort of scoffing comes from, is that especially, you know, a lot of us have a lot more going on than we would care to admit. And the first, hey, I'll say it directly. If you want to get gamed, go talk about how, you know, you're super healthy and there's no way you'd ever get gamed. Yeah. Those of us who have been through the ringer understand it's one of those things. Yeah, you got to get your inoculation, so to speak. Once you go through it, once you've been exposed to it, then you get it. You understand it. If you haven't gone through it, you can only understand it at best intellectually. You have no idea. You have no idea what it's like. That's why I think it's a rite of passage. And so if you haven't been through it, I don't think that the opinion is particularly helpful, because it's kind of like saying like go to war. Well, just don't get shot, you know. Like, okay, well, good. Thanks for the advice. You know, I'll try not to get shot there.
So, like what is again, I'll go back to prerogative. So we know women want different things from men. So what do you think is the most, I'll say what is the one thing, the top thing that a woman would want in trying to game a guy? It doesn't necessarily, to me, I'm thinking it doesn't necessarily mean, I think most people would think it would mean a relationship, but no. I don't think that's true.
No. So all these things are derivative of the core thing. The core thing is energy. Okay. So, but because energy is life force, it's all this stuff. So a woman wants a man who has life force. If he doesn't have that, and this explains the wide variety of different types of guys, right? There may be different sort of selections, but there's the universal is that women never go for guys who have no energy to them, who are really dull, who are unexpressive. And by the way, you can be strong silent type. There's a lot of energy there. There's like a field. People are like waiting. What's this guy going to say? It's very different. It's not a matter of being the most like talkative guy in the room, but you can feel this with people. This person has energy. This person doesn't. One of the ways is that you don't tend to remember people who don't have a lot of energy. You know, there's some people, I'm sure a lot of the listeners here have experienced this, where, you know, there's some people who, you know, you get asked for their name like 50 times and you forget it every single time afterwards because you just don't even feel their presence. I mean, there's hardly anything there. And I mean, it's unfortunate to say that, but that's true for some people. They're really muted. They're forgettable. Some people aren't forgettable. Okay. So you could say that to distill it to a very specific level. Now let's go further down. Women are looking for energy. They want to bring that energy into them. That's creation of life force, right? The womb receives energy and creates something from it. So women are looking for energy to bring into themselves, to draw energy to them. So women are looking to be desired. Okay. But they're looking to be desired by energy. So they're looking to be desired by desirable men, right? Men that have something to offer. Why we talk about women wanting attention is because attention is like a muted version of desire. But if you were to take attention to its most concentrated point, it would be this obsessive desire. I want only you. I want you right now. Right. And that's where a lot of this confusion comes about, because that's what women want. But if you're not the guy for it, women don't want it at all. That's, you know, these old school Saturday Night Live sketches where they have, you know, sexual harassment in the office place, and they have, you know, some, you know, standard sort of middle-aged cubicle worker, you know, out of shape, got the sort of, you know, crown right here. And he goes out after a girl. He says something to the girl. The girl's like, sexual harassment. And then, like Tom Brady, it's not sexual harassment, right? It's a different sort of, because she doesn't want to receive some things, but she wants to receive others. So that's what women want, is attention, because they want to be desired, because they want energy. That's basically the structure.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about energy a lot. So it almost sounds like when you were talking I mean, I want to say it sounds like some women would be considered just energy vampires. And we know that term. And
Succubus.
yeah, a succubus. I mean, they live off that validation, live off that just wanting to be wanted. And then once they're wanted, they disappear.
Yes.
That's I think a pretty standard protocol sometimes.
Well, girl game is succubus game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Now, the reason that it's not necessarily bad is because all women are succubi. A woman who's very integrated, who has dipped her toes in the masculine, who's learned how to structure herself to an extent, she can actually start to create energy for herself. And so you can say at that point that she may not actually need men. I mean, if she actually believes that, then she's depolarized. But if she's fully integrated, or, you know, we're all approximating these things, then she will want men but not need them. She'll want to surrender to a man, but she can exist kind of in her own capacity. And those women are by far the most attractive women. They're radiant. They are the oracles of old. There's this they are the women that the most powerful men always gravitated towards, because those women did not need those men, but they possessed enormous power themselves. I don't want to get too off topic, because you don't see a lot of them in the modern era, but they do exist. They do exist. And when you meet them, You know, it's kind of the experience of sort of like the you know, you can kind of think of yourself as like the Greek warrior going to the oracle. There's almost a sense of fear and trepidation going in there, that these women possess something that is beyond your control as a man. And that's powerful. It's powerful. Women have a lot of power. They've just really lost it by trying to pretend to be men. They need to dip their toes in. They need to understand some degree of structuring, but um, that's not what men are drawn towards. Men are drawn towards the surrender that happens afterwards.
We
But
got to teach them that.
yep,
Men have to teach women how to attract men.
yeah, we really do. The good news is that we're kind of doing it indirectly by simply kind of creating our own community and talking about these things. Because the thing is, women are so naturally, even like the women we wouldn't consider to be like super intuitive, women are still naturally much more intuitive than men. And so they are drawn to where the energy is. And so you have all these, you know, soy boys and guys who really just are total losers, yes men. Women are tired of it. And they might be psychologically broken due to the programming, that they can't quite like figure their way out of it. But more and more women are like, I don't like these men. They suck. Well, these guys over here are attractive, even if they're a little bit edgy. So let me like listen to them. Oh, wait a minute. That makes a lot of sense. But you know, the thing is, and I want to emphasize this, not that I really give a fuck, but just for the sake of it, this isn't meant to be disparaging towards women. It's literally just, we're different. It's not bad. I've said this a million times. Men structure women, women destructure, destruct men. And they're both valuable because men can be too rigid. Women break open that, allow us to restructure more cohesively. But women have a very hard time structuring themselves. That's why you see single women go towards big government, because they need something to structure themselves around. There are very few genuine independent thinkers, and men or women, but there's almost none that are women. And the ones that are, you notice, are like ones that are very, Camille Paglia, right? I mean, there are ones who are really different than other women. Esther Perel, right? I mean, women that are very, very different in what they say, because they've actually really like depolarized into the masculine. They really, really get it, to the point where they've almost lost their feminine, like Ann Coulter's. You don't look to Ann Coulter for femininity. So men structure women. They structure them. I said this earlier in my show today. Every woman who has gone through a sense of sort of self-improvement and has really held on to it and gotten to another level has had some man, whether it's boyfriend, husband, father, mentor, maybe just a male community, that would help to give her structure. And that's one of the reasons why single moms, in the epidemic of it, something against single moms themselves, but the epidemic of no fathers, which is what Anthony talks a lot about, is such a big deal, because then you no longer have a structuring presence. And what that means is that you get a lot of indulgence with emotions. So, but I do want to go back to that question. You can chime in for a second, Tony. I just got to take a drink of water. But about that succubus question, because I want to make sure people understand that.
Yeah. Let me see. It was Woody. Yeah. Woody says, what is a succubus? Can Pat elaborate on that?
It's a house plant, Woody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a house plant that sucks up water. It's like a cactus, right? It goes all the way back to ancient Greek and Roman mythology, but basically a succubus was this mythological kind of woman that sucked the life force out of a man. And there are women who do this. And, you know, you hear about energy vampires. Women will often do this in a sexual manner. You know, a lot of the, if you really get like in a lust driven relationship, a very high intensity sexual relationship, they will try to literally suck the life force out of you. I mean, they'll try to make you come over and over and over and over again. And you actually can become spent as a man. I mean, I try not to get too esoteric for some of these things, but there's like demonic aspects to this as well, that a lot of times these women are really actually entity captured, and they know if a man is blind to himself in a certain way, these women can kind of sneak in there and make the guy want to give up his energy to her. And so gain her is all that matters. Sleeping with her is all that matters. Men have a similar version. It's a little bit different called an incubus. You know, the band Incubus.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a male seducer in what he does to a woman. It's a bit of a different mechanism, though. Yes, do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings. I mean, I don't have to tell this to Michael because Michael is the goat with these things. But the Bible tells you all this stuff, warns you about these types of women, warns you about them. The vital message is such a good comment. Female destruction isn't entirely bad. It can free up some areas or exposes chinks in a man's armor that he needs to reinforce. It's 100%. And this is one of the things I'll say to the guys, because I know that this is a big dialogue in this community. Getting burned by a woman isn't bad. It's not bad. Even these succubus women, even the women who really mess you up, they are showing you yourself. Because if you actually understood yourself on a deep level, you wouldn't fall for them. Like when I see a succubus now, and I see it all the time with clients, it's like, I'm like, it's one of these again. And so it's just a matter for me to help direct the client to seeing it in a way that's not going to trigger too much dissonance. That's the sort of art form of it. But I mean, they're very visible. They're very, very visible at this point, and they're not anything to be afraid of because I know what their energy is like. I know what sort of behavior they do and what they prey upon. And one of the ways I know that is because I can feel how it affects me. It's not to say that like this sort of dark energy, it's not to say that you don't ever stop feeling it. Like, you know what they're, you know, Michael would understand this, you know, Jesus was tempted, right? Like, well, if he was tempted, he felt something. Like, there are certain trigger points that you can hit, but the awareness, you're like, well, I'm not really super interested in this. But the point is that what they do is they reveal where these weaknesses are. And even if she destroys you, so to speak, well, that you were maybe not constructed ideally. So now when you build yourself back up, which this community is really about, it's about building up men. Mm-hmm. You can build back better. Yeah, you can build yourself back better, right? As a man. And that's the point. And the biggest thing that men need to be afraid of is that they are too afraid to be broken. You should never be afraid to be broken, because a man who's more integrated is ready to be broken at any given moment. He can allow parts of himself to be deconstructed because he knows that's how he makes himself stronger and stronger. So he encounters an obstacle, he can leave something, put something back in. The man who's rigid and tries to fight against it will eventually shatter against the force that he's being put against. As time goes on, you need less and less of that. You become more and more resilient. So don't be afraid of women. Are you going to get hurt? Probably you are going to get hurt. And by the way, this has nothing to do with the laws and the fairness of the laws, but getting hurt by women is a rite of passage. And if you're ignoring that, you might as well check out a puberty. That's my personal perspective. So,
yeah, Vivian has a good question. In fact, it was the question I was going to ask. How do you recognize the succubus, or how do you, if you haven't been completely had the life force sucked out of you like I have once or twice, how do you recognize that or discern that without going through it? Is it possible?
I
Love
think
bombing. Love bombing early on, I think, is a sign of a succubus, especially from an older woman to a younger man. I think that's a dead giveaway.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really good, I mean, that whole thing with older women and younger men is a really interesting topic. But before I go into that, just, yeah, love bombing is very huge with it. It's basically, flattery is very important, because if we're going to be honest, when it comes to emotionally, I would say that two of the biggest things that men have as weaknesses are vanity and lust. And so a lot of what girl game will focus on is those two things. So lust is, one thing, but then you could just view the woman as a whore. Okay, well, we have good sexual chemistry, but that's it. But, oh, well, she compliments me and stuff. She makes me feel like a man, but, I don't have this, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like one gives the whore, one gives the Madonna, right? But if you get both of them together, if a girl, and I'll tell you one of the things that is so, you have to respect it. You actually have to respect it. But there are some girls, the more intelligent ones, who can go from being one of the filthiest sluts in the world to then persuading a guy that now she's going to be pure. And it may sound crazy to hear it boilerplate like that, but they do it. They do it because they know exactly how to explain, oh, they distance themselves for a bit. Well, the reason is that now I'm really trying to, I didn't want us to have sex again because, I'm really trying to stop doing that stuff and really trying to, purify myself. I've recommitted myself to God and I don't want to, do that. Dude, it's like really insane how much it throws guys off. And if you're in it, it's so hard to see your way out of it.
That type of stuff has to come from the man. Otherwise, it's complete nonsense. A man would have to say, "Hey, listen, I'm turning myself over to God. The sex ends now." If a woman does that, I say it's almost 100% inauthentic.
Yeah,
And it's misplaced. It's displaced.
No, I would 100% agree with that. I would say that, I think theoretically it could be true, but I haven't seen it in action.
I haven't either.
Certainly if it was true, I can tell you what would happen is that she would say it and then she would cut the guy off completely and literally be in a convent. You know what I mean? Like there would be some sort of like physical relocation and I'm blocking your number. Don't ever, we're done. You know what I mean? It's not this like, I'm going to keep talking to you, but now I'm a good girl kind of thing. Nothing else in my life has changed except now suddenly I've just decided this. But not to get off track, but that's, when they hit those two angles and they can do it, that's when a guy really falls, because they tend to pull a guy in with more of the darker stuff because it pulls in this is unconscious. But then they'll start to sprinkle in, hey, well, I'm also doing other things for you that no other girl's done too. Like I'm sugar and spice and everything nice. Think about, I mean, for guys to understand this, think about what you could do for a girl. think about as a guy with game, how you could check these boxes for a woman. So it's not inconceivable that a woman could do the exact same thing to you. And so in order to determine, yeah, that's so funny, Timbo. Yeah, that's such like a buddy of mine said his girl was giving him oral and told him he has the best cock ever. LOL, pumped his head up. They broke up after she wanted an open relationship. I mean, you know, I only laugh about it because most of us have been through it to some degree or another, and some get sucked in deeper to it than others. But like I said, rite of passage. Yeah, and Uncle Guns, you know, this is one of the things. You know, sex, I don't reward a woman with sex until she displays and demonstrates everything else she has to offer. It's a good frame. It's a good frame. You know, I think, frankly, a lot of guys would probably be better served to put off.
I smell BS.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree. I think it's a little bit of a.
Why do you smell BS?
I just do. The whole chat's full of BS tonight.
I'm not. I agree with
I
you.
don't see it. I just see questions.
I'm gonna humor it though. I do think that
Yeah.
there's a little bit of like, you know, this would never happen to me because, you know, these are some extreme things that I do with women. But you see that a lot in this corner. I would just say that I do think that guys can, you know, if you look at the jujitsu of sort of sex attraction, I think that guys, when they go right towards sex, they leave themselves open to vulnerabilities when it comes to not seeing who a girl is. I've had to extract a lot of clients from girls who the only reason, especially when they come out of the situation, they realize that they didn't actually like the girl as a person. They didn't really know much about her as a person, but because she love bombed him and then, you know, validated him sexually and slept with him a lot, then they kind of lose their head and they can't see things. If you don't do that, and if you do force a girl off on the back burner, and make her kind of show her personality, you have a better shot of not falling for this stuff. And I think, frankly, historically, a lot of communities tried to control for it by intervening themselves. I don't support that, by the way. I'm an individualist. I don't really like it, but I would prefer that everybody learn how to judge themselves and grow themselves rather than outsource their judgment to some external board. But we're in this sort of intermediary stage where we don't have the wisdom of the elders and we're just kind of getting fucked over, you know, most guys are.
What do you think of this Tony's comment? I think this is actually a good comment.
Does everything go back to the Adam and Eve story where Eve appealed to Adam's ego? Is this considered girl game? You know, I can't remember the theologian who talked about this, but about it's more of a shit test, I think, than it is. You know, I don't remember the exact thing that she said to sort of tempt him, but I thought it was more of this, like, I guess that there was like a bit of seduction to it, but so there's overlaps with it for sure.
Well, I want to speak on this really quick. The serpent appealed to Eve's ego, and then Adam just went along with it. That's what happened. The serpent went straight to the woman's ego. And yes, I would agree that if we get the story straight, yeah, I think it can go back to Adam and Eve, absolutely, Tony. But it was the woman's ego that was preyed on by the serpent. Yes.
These stories are all, you know, whether you want to go into the direct, you know, legitimacy that this exact situation happened, they all touch on archetypal metaphorical truths about male and female dynamics, in that, you know, the man falls when he puts his focus on, you know, the structure in a household. I don't want to go right too far off topic with this, but it just kind of, this comes to mind when I think of Adam and Eve usually, which is that you have this big thing like, well, the man should lead the house, right? Not the woman. The man should lead the house. And that's very, you know, for a lot of modern minds, it's it kind of messes things up for people, you know, well, why can't we be equals, etc. The whole orientation, you know, we go back to the structuring. Okay, we go back to the structuring of this. The man structures the woman, but the man, in order to hold an ideal structure, has to look beyond himself. And I think where a lot of the red pill stuff goes off is when they're really focused on, you know, you can only kind of get so far if you're making it about your own ego as a man. If the man looks to God, and you don't have to look at that literally if you don't want to, but the man looks to an ideal beyond himself. That is what allows him to lead appropriately. And that's what allows the woman to then follow him and to trust it. If a man doesn't do that, if a man leads for himself, so to speak, he's not really leading. It's just ego-driven stuff. And then the relationship deteriorates. And then you have reactions like feminism, where they feed on that kind of resentment and amp it up. So I think that what you see with that is Adam stopped looking to God and Adam looked to his woman, and then the structure of society fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to go a little deeper into this. So a guy that, let's just say that a guy that has no options. Okay, I see him as a just the worst kind of victim. A guy that really hasn't been doing well in the dating market, then meets a girl and just gets the life sucked out of him. But he can't leave because he has no options. So do you think that a guy that has more options has a better understanding of girl game?
It's possible, but this is what I'll tell you what happens, because a good example, Tony, what you're describing is most of the guys who you could call blue pill, who get fucked over and then get recycled into the system. Mm-hmm. They were usually guys not particularly attractive going up, didn't really understand women. They might not even be physically unattractive people. They just didn't understand women. Maybe they had a lot of internal trauma, anxiety. So these guys, and I'm going to make a note of this. I want every guy to pay attention to this. This is very important. When a guy has hit an inflection point in his life and he understands something, maybe unconsciously only, but, you know, stuff at work starts to go a lot better. Things are just on the up and up. Every single time, every single fucking time, this guy will have a girl enter his life. Every time. Because it's like signal goes out, you know, radar tracking, guy has energy. Energy's going up. And there's a woman who senses it and grabs onto it. Takes down that buck, right? Now, the relevance of this is that this woman who takes him down isn't like an apex predator herself. She may be kind of middling looking, you know, we're not talking about, you know, some sort of elite Russian model or whatever. She's maybe just a regular girl, but this guy is on the up and up. She goes after him. It's very unconscious for these women. She's very, very fixated on him. He's never experienced it before. And there he goes down. It happens all the time. So you mentioned, Tony, does this happen to guys who are higher up? Well, that guy's not going to fall for a girl like that. Mm-hmm. But there's different predators. And so a girl that will take him down is a girl maybe who's been as bad as him at taking other guys down. And so there's a sort of understanding for each other. They connect based on their ruthlessness, maybe in the love arena. There's a lot of things like this. She'll hit him in a place that he's not used to being hidden. And always very attractive, very intelligent women who do this. And these guys, they might be aware to an extent they're being gamed, and they might know, but it's more like at best case scenario, they know what they don't know. They know that the girl's taking them down, but they don't know why. And and so this is when you get into these sparring matches between them where, you know, one party or the other, and they tend to injure each other. A lot of movies are based on this stuff, you know, dangerous liaisons, or actually, sorry, that's the French book that took place during Louis XIV, but that was made into the famous film Cruel Intentions. Cruel Intentions is a great example of what happens when two apex predators go after each other, but one party eventually gets tired of it because they don't like to stay down there. They realize that maybe it's not fun to just eat people alive. So
Yeah, we got a little question here.
Hmm.
Read that one.
Do you feel that the problem with relationships is that most men get their idea that they're a man because a woman tells them so, rather than being a man in God's eyes? Well, 100%. I mean, I'll just say it very directly. I think that a woman's feedback is valuable, can be valuable, but most of the time, if it's a woman who doesn't really know you and it's a woman who wants something from you, it's usually garbage. It's usually some sort of projection. You know, if you're in a healthy relationship and your, you know, woman calls you out on something, then, and then she doesn't usually do that, right? Then that's good, right? That's maybe something that's like a loyal guidance system, right? I mean, you guys are working together towards something. But I think usually, to be just very direct and general about it, usually when women will tell you how to be a man, it's bullshit. It's just about what they want for their own ego. A real man would, you know, treat me like a queen. A real man would, you know, accept me and my like 5 kids from different dads. You know, a real man, you know, it's just like bullshit.
Yeah. I
Bullshit.
mean, you know, it's one of the things is when a woman tells you to man up. That's probably one of the worst things she can say, because that's her version of manning up. In other words, you need to do what I'm telling you to do. This is what I want. I don't like when a man says that to me, let alone a woman would say that to me, to man up.
I would say that with no exception that I can recall off the top of my head, a woman saying that is an automatic reject.
Mm-hmm.
Just an automatic reject, because no woman, either you have failed so much as a man, like if you're at the point of actually deserving that comment, you would have had to fall to such a low level
Mm-hmm.
that it's hard to imagine the woman would even still be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But when you hear that from women, I agree, also from other men, especially the way it's put, man up,
Mm-hmm.
like that, it's a very low consciousness way of communicating, where you're telling the guy to sacrifice and externalize something, right? Rather than, you know, be different if you say like, be strong, stay strong, right? That's different than man up. Man up is this sort of like, you are not doing what you're told. Like, it's kind of the sort of thing, it feels to me very like servile communication, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Tony has a question. Do women love to hate?
I don't think so. I just think that women are by nature, they deconstruct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they complain more than men. And that's why they don't build as much as men. But again, I want to emphasize for people who, creep in on this, it's not bad. I mean, it's just different. Like if you didn't have anybody willing to point out issues, then there wouldn't be progress. That's not to say I think that women should be complainers. Complaining drains energy. But I will say that women are the first ones to really acknowledge women can see your weak spots. They can see them, and the pressure they put on them. And there's ways that they can do it that are more constructive than others, but women make great men. They do. Women make great men, and great men make great women, and that's the cycle, and it continues like that through their separate roles. But no, I don't think women like to. I only think that women like to hate when when a woman feels detached from love. That's when she falls into hate. Like low consciousness female behavior is drama and soap operas and stuff like that, because women who care about soap operas are not able to, they're not receiving love, basically. And so they get their emotional highs from watching bullshit and people go up and down, up and down, up and down with each other. So it's a low level, it's a low resolution of a woman.
Now, I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm going to say probably the biggest thing in girl game is going to be giving that guy sex to control him. I'm going to say that's going to be the number one girl game mission, because I do believe a lot of guys are controlled by sex. That is, if the sex is good, or hell, if the sex isn't good and it's the only sex, then that is a big time girl game to me.
Yes. What I will say is that sex is an integral part of it. It's creating the fantasy. So if we look at it as fantasy cultivation, well, what's every man's fantasy? Every man's fantasy would be the combination of the Madonna and the whore together, right? It would be the purest girl and the filthiest girl, all yours, right? The pure made profane, or the profane made pure. It goes both directions. I would say it's more common for the girl to game by leading with the profane, because it tends to create more of a charge off the back. And so she shows herself to be really filthy, pulls you in, and then shows her purity that only you can see and you can get. So then you get kind of pulled down there. It's very different if a girl, and I have to emphasize that the combination is important, because it's not a pure fantasy otherwise. If the girl is just a whore and she's like, okay, it's great sex, and she's like, all right, see ya, you're not going to fall for her nearly the same way. There's an emotional element about her wanting you and wanting to care for you that goes with it. It's like, crazy sex, and then it's like she makes you breakfast, you know what I mean? Then she, writes you this heartfelt letter. I mean, it's this kind of stuff. Like that's the stuff that, and it doesn't happen all at once, because if she gave it all at once, it would seem insincere. It's like this gradual, like you started to win her over. And so it's kind of gets you moving towards her. Like, oh yeah, well, wow. There's this whole other side to her that only I ever saw. And that's what gets the guy whose desire for conquest. Okay, you conquered her sexually, but what else is there? You want to conquer that too. You want to capture the kingdom. That's the stuff that gets it. Now, it can go the other way too. It can go that she's this, you know, pure girl and she does all this kind stuff for you, but then you gradually take her sexually, right? Further and further. And again, I want to state that not all game is bad, right? But it's the combination of the two things that leads to a guy fixating. Because if it's only one, what you get is this dissonance where you're like, well, you know, I like her for this, but not for this. And so you'll never fully give yourself to her. And that doesn't, you could say it's poorly calibrated game if she only gets the partial result.
I mean, it reminds me of that, I think it was a song, a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let me go to Hold the Truth Hostage here. He's one of my regulars here, and I love him. So I want you to respond to this.
Women can't make a great man. I think a weak man thinks he is great through dependency on her validation, which is shattered when other men exposes how below greatness he is and when she leaves him. Well, look, I think we're talking about two different things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is not about looking to a woman for validation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're motivated by a woman's validation, then you will get burned. And also you won't get that validation for long. I mean, whether she leaves or not, you're going to get indifference from her over time. I like to take this to the higher resolution because I think it's important for us to understand it. The term the muse, right? Why is this a thing? What is a muse? Well, if you're an artist, there's this whole idea of a woman being a muse, a woman being the source of inspiration. The feminine provides inspiration to men, provides inspiration to men. But if a man focuses on trying to grab and capture that, the muse kind of goes away. The muse is always this thing, you know, you listen to great men, they talk about fortune being a woman, right? That there's this ethereal aspect to the feminine energy that it favors you and then maybe it doesn't. But if you ever try to focus on, if you ever try to capture it, you lose it. So when I say that great women make great men, I do think that there is a partnership, and this is very different from a lot of the stuff you see with regular people who haven't done the work. Okay, they haven't done the work, and so they don't have the kind of relationship where you can actually have kind of honest conversations. But even just speaking beyond that, women, if a man is trying to like impress a woman and focusing on that, he's not going to get her. He's not going to get her long term. Because his focus is on trying to get her favor, and that's exactly not how he gets his favor. But we have to, and because I understand where a lot of these guys, you know, where you're coming from, a lot of these guys are coming from. There are different relationships, and there is this sort of standard relationship where the man doesn't really understand women, the woman doesn't really understand men, and guy likes a girl, he puts his focus on her, she doesn't like it, she pulls away, guy gets wrecked. On higher levels, it's very different. Just when there's more integrating there, it's very different. And I can try to explain it more, but it's I think it's important for guys like to use their imagination, understand when you get to a higher level relationship, you can talk about a lot of different things. You can call her out on stuff. And it's not like, or she can be upset about something. It's not that that means that she's going to leave. That doesn't mean that she's going to, that, okay, you failed the frame test because you shared something about yourself, right? That's not how it works in higher level relationships.
Yeah, I want to welcome Michael Foster. I want to address his comment. He says, "Do you mean a partnership to build a family?" That word partnership is it kind of rubs me the wrong way, because I think when a man says, she's my partner, I know Jesse always busts on this, and somebody will say, well, my partner. He'll say, a guy will say, hey, I was talking to my partner, and he'll say, are you married to a man?
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those words that I'll say rubs me the wrong way, but it's not always a bad thing. I think in this umbrella, in the manosphere, partnership is not the same thing outside that umbrella of the manosphere.
I mean, I don't even know if I used the term or not. Maybe I did use the term.
No, I don't think so.
You did it.
Did he?
No.
No,
Okay.
he didn't. Yeah.
I will say though that partnership to me has a different connotation than saying my partner.
Mhm.
Like, my partner is very neutral and probably means that you are gay, like you're dating a man or something like that, right? Partnership, there's different connotations with it, and sometimes if you're trying to be very generalized about dynamics, maybe you could use the term partnership. I agree it's not like ideal, but if you're saying like your partner, you could be talking to a man or a woman. It could be like an easy way to not have to say talking to a man or talking to your man woman. But if you say my partner, it's different because then it's in relation to you. Just making this like general point. It also rubs me the wrong way, but sometimes it's like cuts down on words if you say
Yeah, it does.
to both groups. That's all.
Yeah. And I think what happens too is a lot of guys, and really guys do this. I think women naturally say it, but guys will say it, then they realize what they said. And I think it's just one of those words that is just commonly used. And I think a lot of guys will, and a lot of people will kind of backpedal on that. So I don't think it's a good word to use. Michael Foster, we're talking about girl game. So what's your thoughts on girl game? And as far as like, let's say, I mean, you're a married guy, so there's still girl gaming in marriage. That's what I wanted to go to next with Pat too, so let's talk about girl game in a marriage. And John Steele, I want to welcome you too. Feel free to jump in anytime. But as far as girl game in a marriage, let's go on with that. So
I always love to come when Pat's on because Pat's got real good instincts. You're a feeler. I can tell that you feel these things and you think them through. And a lot of things you say them in a different way, but they kind of represent things I've been studying and looking at scripture. So space-time is manipulated by mass. And so if you imagine a mattress and you put a bowling ball in the middle of it, the mattress dips down. And then if you throw a marble, the marble will go around the bowling ball, right? So that's a way to simulate gravitational pull. So the old Roman virtue of gravitas, right? It means to be serious, to be grave, but it means to have weight, literally have weight to you, to have like mass, to have pull. So this is what I think the red pill is trying to. So the way I look at a lot of PUA stuff, a lot of game, a lot of red pill stuff, it's how to simulate mature sexuality, mature manhood. Whoa, it's Bobby Dino. Awesome.
What's happening?
Cool. So what I think is going on with a lot of the stuff that we see in the manosphere is gravitas, like that's developed by virtue and having other people work on you, and you grow this mass, this weight, right? It's funny, the word glory with God is actually means like a weight. And so man is the glory of God, woman is the glory of man. This straight up says that in scripture. So you look at all these different cultures and they describe this attribute, this virtue of gravitas using different language. But you get gravitas by what Pat was saying is basically looking out, right? Having a mission. So you put 2 chairs in a room, you put 2 boys under 12 in there, they will turn the chairs next to each other. You put 2 girls in there, they'll turn the chairs facing at each other, right? Men naturally look outward, women naturally look towards the partner in the room. Girls from a young age identify faces before boys do, and boys identify objects. Men have a higher degree of mental transformation. In other words, they can look at something and imagine how they would shape it. Men like Tesla could plan out things all the way. Autism, in some cases, seems like it's like the male brain on steroids. It brings it down. But the point I'm trying to make here is what is most important in a male-female relationship is that the man has more gravitas than the woman. He has more pull, he has more weight. So, the way I say it, God is the sun, and man and woman both go around God. God's still the center of our solar system for both equally. Yet the woman goes around the man like the moon goes around the earth, right? How does the earth lead the moon? It has more mass. And what you see is a lot of guys think they can command a woman into respecting them, like demanding. They can leverage, they can use all this power. They can put their gym bag by the door and grab it and use dread game. That may simulate some of these things for a moment, right? You look at game, it's most of the stuff you see talked about, it's not next level stuff. It's really short-term strategy. And you have to develop gravitas. You have to develop weight, skill, virtue, ability, and it cannot be developed just to get the woman, because women are like nature. They smell it, they feel it, they know when it's meant for them, and what they want is a mission that is greater than them. And that's why jerks get women a lot of times for a short time, because what they mistake, the guy doesn't need them. He's willing to go do something, and that feels like a drivenness and mission to them, a gravitas. And it, sometimes they are driven and have a mission, and they're just a punk. But a lot of times, it's just they do whatever they want. And so I think, guys, in my marriage, I like to stay ahead of my wife. I like to get up before her. I like to work really hard. And M she's hard to keep up with, right? She's really smart, really hardworking, and like I was saying earlier in the chat, I've had my own fire before I had Emily, but when I married her, she feeds it. She makes me stronger. And guys that act like, well, I don't need my woman to be stronger. Well, you're an idiot, right? That means you don't have one, or you don't have a mature relationship. Because if you had a mature marriage, you would know it's awesome, right? She's a multiplier. So in Proverbs 31, there's 2 women. Everyone talks about the godly women, right? That's in verse 4 down to the bottom, the one that's rare. But the one before that is the one that Solomon's mother says, don't give your strength to women, right? So if you study Proverbs, and it's kind of going along the lines of what Pat calls a succubus, or describes, is that it's a woman that she takes the man's strength and saps it from him for her own need. So that's Proverbs 5 and 7, describes her destroying his household, losing his life, losing all this stuff. You look at Proverbs 31, it's amazing. She is a man that takes a guy's strength and multiplies it. So a man gives a woman a little bit of sperm, and she makes a person, right? A man brings home flour, and she makes bread, right? A man leaves his wife back at the home, and she expands it. So the Proverbs 31 woman starts in the home, but she's buying property and spreading out, right? And so she's a multiplier for the man, but she can't multiply what he doesn't give her, right? And a lot of men want the woman to work from a deficit, So I just try to give my wife the raw stuff. I try to create a safe home with boundaries and with respect, and and try to be ahead of her and try to be the coolest, calmest person in the room, and have at least a couple steps on her. And that helps the marriage so much. That helps the game so much.
Well, let me real quick, let me welcome Shift. Of course, Bobby Dino, welcome. JP, welcome. John Steele, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on, Tony. Hello, gentlemen. I spoke to, I think, most of you before.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Tony, when you were speaking about the word partner, I was having flashbacks to the film American Beauty with Kevin Spacey when the two gay guys showed up at the Marine's door and they goes like, "Hi, I'm Neil and I'm Bob, and we're just, we're partners. We want to welcome you to the neighborhood." And he says, "What are you selling?"
I don't know about that word partnership. So
yeah, I was going to say I don't like it either. That's what
That's a
Tony
tough
was
one.
saying.
It's a tough one, no matter where you come from.
And Pat, by the way, Dangerous Liaisons, that novel, that French novel, was adapted into a film in the 1980s with John Malkovich and Glenn Close, and it was some of the finest examples of verbal sparring ever captured on film. And I advise everyone to check it out.
I'll check that out. I mean, Glenn Close was, man, the Basic Instinct. I mean, she knew how to channel that for sure. I mean, that's a whole nother topic I'm sure I'll talk with Michael about, how she was able to channel that.
Actually, in Dangerous Liaisons, that was because the film relied almost entirely on dialogue because, it was beautifully set. They recreated that aristocracy of France pre revolution. But it's a brilliant film, and it's expertly adapted from the novel.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to just make a couple comments on Michael's stuff because he always brings up such like incredible stuff, and I love how he grounds it in the scripture, which I think is like a knowledge base that unfortunately a lot of us are lacking in today. First off, just for guys, I always talk about how the man has the most energy, the woman's going for the energy. Same thing when we're talking about gravitas. Okay, that object has it is able to pull more energy towards it. To make it in terms of everyone understands, that's just hypergamy. That's hypergamy. That's all it is. It's not that complicated.
Absolutely.
It is literally just you have the most mass, you have the most energy. You don't have to overcomplicate it. A lot of people overcomplicate it. How do you, women are hypergamous. Of course they are. You want them to.
Why are you taking shots at Rollo, Pat? Come on, why are you taking?
Yeah, it's their job to propagate the species, and they have to choose the best sperm. So they're the gatekeepers. So they have a very important role in the biology and the advancement of the species. If they weren't selective, then we'll have a lot of even more retarded men. But it's probably outside sources, with it be beyond women. It's really us, the men, that are failing. So
yeah. So I wanted to mention that, and just with the rest of the stuff, in terms of the structure of the household, the energy, this amplification that a good woman does. Women are creative force. Men are the manifestation and matter of the antimatter that exists in women and pure potentiality, which is why the pursuit of a woman, the inspiration of a woman, the muse that I was talking about, right? Your wife should be a muse for you. A muse amplifies energy. She takes a little cut and then she amplifies what you give her, right? That's fortune. That's expansion. A lot of the stuff that you see, and when we talk about dread game, and we talk about these tactical things, this is black magic. It's what it is, really. It's black magic. It's energy harvesting. And so you'll have these women or men, right? They pull as much energy from guys into them, and they feed off of it. But it's different the other way. Whereas if you give and you expand, and unfortunately, a lot of the guys, because we do live in a traumatized society, we live in a fallen society in many ways, it is harder to find people who don't have some baggage, right? Who don't have some affectation of this darker programming. you have to, I think, on a practical level, unless you really are in a good community and you really have just a naturally, like, practically speaking, most guys are going to want to get a good girl who hasn't been fucked up too badly, whose intentions are in the right place, and then work on deprogramming together. But again, you're going to have to be a step ahead in the deprogramming to do that. You can't
deprogram anybody, honestly, in this world. It goes back to Plato's allegory of the cave. You try to get them out of the cave. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. They're trapped. It's done. They're going to resent you for even trying to bring up logic to a woman, especially a modern woman nowadays that has slept with over hundreds of men. There's no way you could deprogram her. Some of them are just a hopeless cause. You just can't do it. You're wasting your time, and you're just wasting nature's time too, because that woman, unfortunately, a lot of people love misery, and misery loves company, and stupidity simply demands it. You cannot fight Plato's allegory of the cave.
But Shift, isn't that like a super extreme case? I get that, a woman that slept with hundreds of men. Yeah, I think they're beyond repair for sure, without a doubt. And I think that's where your selection comes in. Now, we're talking about girl game. If you got a girl that's, been ran through a million times, you should be able to detect her girl game.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as she just walks, the way she walks, just looking at her attitude, just the way she even looks with her eyes, you could tell with her body language. Like, I was before pre-COVID, I was like a club promoter, in New York City. So I got to see all types of women, and it was my job, and I got to see a whole bunch of nonsense, and it really helped me, like, to figure out, like, oh, she's that type of girl. And also certain books, like one I found really helpful. It's not a game book. It's not a manipulation book. It's Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. Just like Foster said about succubuses. Basically, this book describes in historical terms different types of women through historical times, how different architecture, how they manipulate men. Like, women are just so ingrained with it. It's like, just look at Julius Caesar being played by Cleopatra. It goes back to ancient times. It's just.
I'd love to throw a topic out there that I think I'd like to hear, in particular, Pat and Bobby Dino. This is something I thought about, that I've noticed. I see a lot of weakness, like intellectual weakness in the red pill, frankly. Clearly haven't read much philosophy, theology, just uneducated, frankly. It's stupid. Most of it's dumb. You read much stuff.
You're talking about Ryan Stone, I'm sure. Okay.
He's certainly not a titan among men when it comes to the stuff he does. I don't know what sort of guy he is, but in terms of, I'd be interested to see any academic papers
he's married to low-hanging fruit, as low as it hangs. So.
But when you see that, like, people get stuck in these tropes, and they don't move past. So one kind of subtext I heard here, I want to point out, relates to marriage game, is that, or whatever you want to call it. So it's the idea of what people call shit tests, right? Or a test. Now, guys get really offended by the idea that a woman would test them. Okay. If you get offended that a woman would test you, I'm telling you right now, you're weak. You're absolutely weak and insecure and don't know anything about women. You don't understand female psychology. You don't understand any of it. A woman tests for multiple reasons, right? So to see if you're congruent, if what you claim to be is what you actually are. We do that with guys. We do it through insults and play and seeing how, we call someone a name. Like, women compliment, don't mean it. Guys insult, don't mean it. Well, we insult to figure out, like, is this guy I can trust? It's not, you're feeling them out. If you overreact and insult too much, well, you're weak. If you don't react at all ever, you're probably weak too. It's a hard thing, right? Guys are complicated that way. But everyone makes tests, but a woman tests to see if you're congruent. They also test to see if you'll lead them, right? If you can keep your cool. And they think they have a sort of chaotic energy, but they want to see, are you someone that can actually react to it, that in a healthy way? Women also test men to to pull the masculinity out of them, right? It's like feeling a man's muscle for a woman. She likes to see that the polarity, and I think all that stuff can be really good, but guys see it only as like drama or her being like illogical or something. Like there's a relational logic to it, and the interplays of the sexes in a healthy relationship is something I don't hear much in the red pill. I hear it all because it seems like it's all structured towards just sex, because they're all blue pill dudes that define themselves by how much sex they have, right? That's the whole thing. That's how it comes off to me anyhow, you know. But I'm curious to hear Bobby and Pat, who've been around and are married, what your thoughts on that topic is.
Go for it, Pat.
Well, there's one thing I wanted to mention here, because I think it's really, you know, I got to mention this like black magic, white magic stuff. When you detect a woman who has some kind of issue, and by the way, there are women who have, you know, I don't want to say that everybody, some people you can't save, but realistically, you can't save some people, and you actually can't save anybody yourself. I want to make a little distinction here just from before. In the context of a relationship, a woman is going to follow your lead. If you are a strong man, you're going to have this mass, as Michael talks about, you're going to pull her into it, which is why you see, for instance, when it comes to voting, just to give a very crude example, you see married women pretty much vote as married men do, but you don't see single women do it. The reason for that is that a woman is going to follow your lead, and a woman politically is going to be about one step behind you where you're at politically, if you have any mass or gravitas to you. Now, that's different than trying to logically argue with a woman to try to say, well, you should do this, and you know, this, like that. Actually trying to engage with a woman on a logical level, and actually frankly to engage with a man on a logical level with some extension, you know, this is not, people don't make decisions like that. Men are more receptive to logical arguments than women, but ultimately you're like, when people argue, you're not operating from a position of strength. A man who's in a position of strength, this is what he does, this is how he feels. The men who persuade women don't do it because they got her, you know, they call it out her straw man arguments. You know, they did it because they just ignored a lot of her arguments if she even was making them, and simply were the thing that she was drawn towards. And suddenly a lot of these arguments don't matter to her. Her opinion shifts naturally. Now, a point I want to make though, because there are women who are damaged out there, but are not damaged beyond repair. And I want to remind a lot of the guys listening that a lot of you aren't so pretty yourselves. This is a pretty, we got a lot of people who, you know, are in the trauma unit right now. There's a lot of problems, and we shouldn't be throwing stones in glass houses. We should be focusing on our own house and trying to build it. And it's very important to understand that the same game awareness that allows you to see that this woman is hurt here, and so if I do this game technique, I can, you know, whatever, pull her in this direction. You can use that same wound and try to heal her. And this is a very higher level kind of game, so to speak. But if you really want to alpha widow a girl, serious about this. This isn't some sort of like bullshit, you know, some guys will come like, this is gay or whatever. Serious. If you are able to see a girl where she is most wounded, and rather than push on the trauma to get her to respond to you sexually the way you want, if you're to actually provide compassion to that, you can see her completely break down. And actually, if you wanted to own a girl's heart, you could do it at that moment. But you have to have more compassion for yourself in the situation first. You have to understand I'm not telling guys to jump on grenades. I'm not telling guys to do that. Just trying to say that trauma, you can use it in both directions. You can wound further, or you can help to heal. It's not your responsibility to take on any damaged woman. And ideally, you're not going to take on one at all. But we are operating in the real world. You know, there are women who went to college and probably they slept with a couple of guys. I'm not saying they had like gangbangs and got train ran on them, that you got to take those girls or anything. I'm saying if you're a guy and you yourself have gone out and tried to hook up with girls, be very cautious if you're going to throw judgment on a woman who was completely lost in her early 20s and maybe she had some trauma and she had an experience, as if you don't have any of those experiences yourself.
That's just called being a good person. I mean, yeah, I agree. If you really want to help, but I mean, from my experience, Plato's allegory of the cave is super strong and is super relevant. Let's look at nowadays with the government and things beyond just dating. Like all the advice, all the things, even with the JAB, like it's just craziness that's going on. And you know, there is solutions, but nobody wants to hear it. Or like how the government is trying to pass the debt limit. I think they passed it today. They don't want to fix the problem. They want to keep passing debt. And the solution, stop printing money. But they don't want to do it. They want to kick the can down the road. Nobody wants to hear it. Plato's allegory of the cave. I'm telling you, Plato, wise beyond his years. That's philosophy right there. And you could save yourself a ton of torment and misery. You know, it's one thing if the person is crying for help. Then
100%.
Then you can help them. But even then, it's optional, because the only one you're right about, like you need to save yourself first as a guy, especially if you're in trouble and with trauma. I mean, if you need therapy, go get therapy. But honestly, I think you just need to understand why you're feeling that way. That's why I read like certain spiritual books, like to understand about higher consciousness. You know, you exist. You know, and you want to build that awareness. I think the only purpose, I'm not religious at all, but I think the only purpose of man is trying to be close to God as possible, you know, and that is building that awareness. You know, you're alive. Like, what is motivating you every day? Is it your thoughts and your actions? Is it really your thoughts and your actions? Is any of your thoughts original? If it's not, or, you know, if you get a react to emotion, like you're not even aware of your emotions or actions, then you're asleep. You know, you're basically a machine to somebody else. And that the whole point is this, really just trying to become more aware, you know, as a guy. And once you do that, then you could see what other people emotional state is very, very quickly, just by even asking one question. You'll notice you ask the right questions without even trying to manipulate or do anything. You just see what the person is going through. And if they're willing to open up to you, then that's great. You can help them. But if they're not, they're being combative, having an attitude, then the best thing to do is like, okay, cool, and just walk away, because they're not ready for it. You cannot lead certain people out of the cave, unfortunately not. But if they're willing to be open, then sure, if you can. If you think the person is ready, but majority of people today are not. You know, just looking at things beyond dating, is just craziness what's going on.
Yeah, I want to go to either Bobby Dino's been quiet, and so is JP. Any thoughts on what's going on tonight?
Yeah, I'll go, Tony. And by the way, thanks for having me.
Thanks
Pat,
for being here.
cool to be on a show with you finally after all these years. Michael, good to see you again. Gentlemen that I've met before, nice to meet you. You know, I think that a lot of the problem with red pill masculinity and just essentially life in general, right, is people want to have this kind of binary look at things when life is just a bunch of different shades of gray. Okay, and we want to believe that we are worthy of redemption, but on the flip side of the coin, we want to believe that nobody can be redeemed, right? We want to believe that we should be coddled and taken care of and have somebody meet our needs. But on the flip side, we want to believe like, oh, well, if they don't got their shit in order, then, you know, screw them. Like they're on their own, right? And the fact of the matter is everybody capable of redemption? Well, we can look at like prison recidivism rates, right? Here's a specialty of mine. Okay, we can look at like how many people get out and end up going back. Well, right now in California, it sits at around 67%. You know, and that shows you right there that yeah, a lot of people, given the chance, will perpetually and keep screwing up, right? But there are those that understand the error of their ways and end up turning it around. I think Pat was dead on a minute ago and saying that instead of needling on someone's trauma and nurturing it, you can actually help somebody go the other way. You can actually be that catalyst for someone to make a change. Now, I'm not saying that you could be that person's change, because ultimately everything lies with you and what you decide to do, what you decide. The choice is your own responsibility through those honest self-reflections and self-assessments, what you can do. However, you can have people be that catalyst. It's like that saying, you know, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? Someone can bring you to that water, but you're the one that's got to drink it. Okay. I think that, and my apologies to anybody on the board or on the panel or anybody watching at home, right? But I think that a lot of this is like this autistic spectrum type thing, to where it has to be either this or this. And if it's not this, then it's this. And if it's not that, then it's this. And it's like, man, life does not work that way. It has never worked that way. Okay. There are very few things in life that are black and white. You're alive or you're dead. You're a male or you're a female. And I know we can be funny and be like, oh, well, nowadays they say, you know, this and that or whatever. Okay. But hey, let's not mess around. That's what it is. Okay. There are very few things. Other than that, there are so many different shades and so many different little things that we have to choose ourselves, right? Okay, well, here's what the situation is. This person was like this. Maybe this person had a rough past, or this person came from a crappy childhood. Maybe this person was abused somehow or whatever. Do I want to make this person a part of my life? Do I think that this person, that I can benefit this person? Because that's another thing too. And it's natural to an extent, but we immediately think, how can they benefit me? All right. You look at any type of social media relationship, or you know, the guys working together and everything, and it's all about, you know, oh, it's networking. They benefit me, you know, do. And it's like we really have to look too, if we want it to be the fullness of a spiritually, mentally healthy relationship, if you will. How can I benefit them? Right? Because if you're not going to bring anything to the table except maybe some debt, you know, emotional, financial, otherwise, or whatever, then you're going to just torpedo that relationship faster than the other person is. Okay. It's really a two-way street. So how can, sure, you know, do that natural thing. How can they benefit me? But how can I benefit this person? And you got to weigh the good with the bad, because and there are some accounts that I just read, and some of the stuff is just so off the hook. And I think like these people are going to be single forever. They're going to be 70 years old, still writing about, you know, vans and green lines and all this other stuff, right? Because it's ridiculous and it's autistic. Like, it is so on the spectrum that I can't believe that people give credence to some of this stuff. You know, and while not everything, you know, a broken clock is right twice a day. Okay, so not everything that's being said may be incorrect, but like some of this stuff is just like, oh my God, if you're going to live your life like that, you're going to have a miserable life. Okay, and I think that's when we talk about when Michael was talking about marriage and stuff like, relationships, serious relationships, marriage, how that kind of works with the red pill. And I think that a lot of these guys are so in their own head, right, that they've got an idea of, this is what it has to be. This is what this is how there's a checklist, people's court, 246 toothpicks, like some Rain Man stuff. And like, if that's how you're living your life, okay, your life is not going to be that much worth living. You got to look and stop looking at things as black and white and start looking at things as shades of gray. And if you think you're worthy of redemption, if you think you're worthy of a second chance, then that means other people are worthy of redemption and a second chance too. And you really have to start flipping the script and looking, instead of not to quote Kennedy, but not what my country can do for me, but what can I do for my country? Not what can they do for me, but what can I do for them? How can it be like this instead of just some one-sided blob of a mess that leaves you alone and miserable for your entire life?
I just got to say this real quickly. It's amazing, Bobby. I really appreciate you saying that.
Thanks.
What people need to understand is that you're not every broken woman's responsibility. You may not be any broken woman's responsibility, right? It's not about this binary of, so what are you saying? You're saying if you're saying it's not about getting a perfect girl, are you saying I should jump on a completely broken girl? It's like, no, it's not what I'm saying. It's just that you will feel, maybe with one particular girl who you're drawn to, for whatever reason you're drawn to, that maybe that there's some work that you guys are going to do together. This whole thing of looking for dogmas outside of yourself, like this looping in guys' heads, that is trauma. That is trauma. That's anxiety. Guys need to be aware of themselves. If you're looping in your head and you're looking for me or anybody else on this panel to tell you exactly what to do when it comes to women, how you're supposed to, that is, you're externalizing. You're externalizing judgment. You're not looking inward. And then when you externalize, then you can be a victim, right? When, you said this thing and then this, she was mean to me. And now because I followed your advice, all the work that I do with guys is about building up their internal knowing so that they don't need me, so that they can go out and judge. I'll have situations with a guy where it's like, yeah, that girl's trash. And then there's one girl and it's like, she's got problems and you're obviously into her and you're drawn towards her and your guys are going to be together. Like that's what's going to happen for at least a time. So draw these lessons out of it, pay attention to what's going on. But, this is facing reality. There's some individual calling that you may have towards a woman, in that with any decision in your life, you have to trust yourself. The problem is that guys are so broken that they can trust themselves. So they look outward. That is what we have to break here. Stop looking outside for gurus. Start working on the internal stuff. Use your judgment.
Yeah, Stedman just destroyed the entire Rolosphere viewers.
Hey, Pat, I got a question for you. Excuse me. Nice to meet you, by the way. But one simple question. I mean, you said that people should just start looking to their own judgments instead of looking outside for gurus. But isn't the reason why they're broken a product of their own judgments? It's like you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it in the first place. So maybe people need like outside advice to, kind of like stimulate them to get them to change the way they think about it first and all that.
No, so let's I love the question. Let's be precise here. We're all programmed to certain degrees. And a lot of what we go through, we get it from our parents, but of course we also get it from media, entertainment. There's all these sort of programming that we get that we internalize, and that programming, which we can say comes from maybe the ego, I like to call it like the parent, like it's sort of this lower resolution self, and it starts to develop as we go through adolescence, and it's basically an interfacing mechanism with the world, whereas this other part of our psyche, which is much more unconscious, and if you're ever been around children, you see children are very much just themselves, right? They want this, they're very impulsive, they're very in the moment. Okay, what happens for a lot of guys if they have negative programming is that this more conscious part of their mind begins to be programmed against them. Their deeper, higher self, deeper, higher, it's the same kind of thing. And that creates a lot of the dissonance and pain. So when you say, yes, maybe there's an element of trying to reprogram the outer self, but ultimately what you want to do is you want to make that part of you that interfaces with the world. And I apologize if I'm cutting through this very quickly. I just, there's a lot of people. I want everyone to have their chance to speak. This interfacing part of the consciousness should ultimately be looking not to the rest of the world. Like people get this part of their mind programmed to be like a police force. Like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, we see this a lot today. People are literally under mind control. Literally, it's mind control. But be very cautious that when you come out of one matrix, you don't fall into another. You can fall out of one paradigm and then get caught in another trapping one where you're still looking outward for people to tell you what to do. They're just telling you that you're against this other side. And that is actually the overall control matrix. So what you want to look for is people who ultimately are going to show you how you can listen to your own inner knowing, because that is the way that you, in the inner knowing, I mean, if you go deep enough, that's God, really. That's your connection, your higher self. So this is the stuff. So it's that's I hope that makes more sense with it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, it makes sense from like an intuitive standpoint, but but from like a thinking and judgment standpoint, it's like, I mean, well, like you got the red pill, for example. I mean, a lot of their issues basically boil down to entitlement. I mean, just because you see a pretty woman, you find her attractive, doesn't mean that you're entitled to her affection or even her attention and all that. And I think that's where a lot of those guys become salty. They become like sour. And nowadays you're seeing a lot of them grow bitter as time goes on, and this entitlement just kind of drags them down and all that. And it's like, and I'm just sitting there listening to these guys. And I'm like, dude, you're not entitled to that. I mean, just focus on the type of life you want to live. And then if a woman likes you, I mean, then you can either accept or reject that, depending on your choice and all that. But going up to a chick, trying to convince her, to be with you, I'm like, dude, like you already putting yourself in like a position of weakness and all that. So of course you're gonna get a lot of the what y'all call shit test and all that type of stuff, instead of just, dealing with a woman that naturally just find you attractive for whatever purpose and all that. Then you might not get as much of that. Well, from my experience, at least.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the joint, I was I did a 10-year sentence in there. And for the first 5 years, I was just kind of following the politics and going along with the flow and all that. And then when I came to the realization that I needed to turn my life around, one of the ways that I did that was with mentorship. And I know it may seem like, oh, you were getting mentored by people that were in prison. Well, there's people that have been in prison longer than, I've been alive. And they kind of came to the realization many years ahead of time that they wanted to turn around their lives. And as cheesy as it may sound, you can be free anywhere if your thinking is on point. And I sought out a couple of those guys that had that vibe, you know, and tried to glean some wisdom off of them. There was also some books that I went to, but you're absolutely right, man. And the fact that broken thinking isn't going to get you like fixed results, you know. Broken thinking is just going to perpetuate whatever type of vicious cycle you're in. There has to be some type of change, like internalized. I think what the big deal is, though, is that you have to be able to see somehow the change that you want, that you're looking at. Like, let's say, you know, you're talking about a mentor or thinking about a mentor or something like that. Well, how does that dude live his life? How's that life going for that guy? Does that guy getting the kind of results that you're wanting to get? Because if that's the case, then you could probably assume that a lot of the advice that he's going to give you is good. And then you can take on those traits, you can take on those roles or that advice and be like, okay, you know what? I've been doing life like this when I should be doing life like this, right? And you have something to bounce it off of, right? Like if you've got, on the flip side of that, and you know, I really hate because I feel like I don't know a lot of these guys well enough to be talking anything bad about them. So I'm not going to try and go down that road. But some of the ones that I have met and do, you know, have had my own interactions with in the red pill, you know, you see how they're going about things. And you think like, well, gee, is that what's going to work for me? Is that kind of how I want to be living my life or looking at life? And if the answer to that is no, well, then that's not the kind of advice you want to be taking. But you're absolutely right in the fact that broken thinking is not going to get you fixed results. So if you're in a kind of loop or kind of stuck in this pattern to where it's not getting you where you want to be, then absolutely, whether it's through mentorship, whether it's through books, both programs, whatever the heck it is, there needs to be some change. Absolutely 100%.
Well, I'm going to play a little clip here, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy this. We'll talk about other spectrums of the manosphere, and here is one that I was a part of, and this is what happens when you leave this cult, and I'll play it for you real quick. Here we go.
But here's where I was going with this one, Rollo. You were saying, like, ask me how I know, and you know, all I could think of was this goofy photo of what's his name, Tony Bruno, holding up your book about how great it was, and then not 3 months later, he's talking about how much of an asshole Rollo is.
Right, and then another, and then
he went from a hero to a zero, just like that in his eyes.
Yeah, and in another year, it'll be like, oh, Rollo saved my life. Oh, can we do something again? Yeah.
People need to make over $40,000 a year for us even to mention them on this channel.
But I could have picked like any one of 100 guys. Like, Rollo, I've known you now.
Kill your idols is what it is. It's the kill your idols dynamic is what it comes down to.
Or even I.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Killing my idol.
I don't know, man. Rollo has that weird, like it's like he's trying to be like a cult leader or something like that. Like,
yeah, it definitely is. In fact, he mentioned that, and in fact, I'll start. This is my shot. First of all, it wasn't 3 months. It's been about 2 years since I fell out of that shitty cult, and I feel sorry for every guy on that panel. Okay, and I'll start with Ryan Stone at the top. And first of all, everybody knows about him, and he's not worth a whole lot. He thinks he's an intellectual, and he's more of just a loser, in my opinion. And then we'll go to Modern Life Dating. We don't have to say much about him except probably check his phone. We know he likes younger women, really young. I'm just saying. So shots at me, I can take shots back. Rollo, you're welcome to come on this stream anytime. I know you're a lurker. I know you're a creeper. Get a haircut, look like a man. Okay, that's my opinion to you. Cooper, I don't have much to say to you. I respected you. I thought you were a good guy. So not much to say to you. I know John Fitch. John Fitch, you're a pawn, just so you know, in that whole stream. John Fitch, you're a quality guy, an MMA fighter, one of the best champions in the world. and you align yourself with those losers. You are there because you are a name, and that is the only reason. And from what I see from John Fitch is, sorry, John, but you're a broken man. I like you. I've met you. I've spent time with you. But my best advice to you, and I usually don't give advice, I give support. My support to you is dump those losers, because it's not a good look for a guy like you. So there's my shots. Thank you. And go fuck yourself, everybody on the panel.
Man, y'all gotta understand, man. Rolo has what I call Moses syndrome. You know, Moses came out with the 10 Commandments, and he's looking at himself as Moses with the rational male. You know, so it was written on the rational male, so it shall be done, man. He has a Moses complex, man. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, hold the truth. Like, you got to remember, Moses didn't make it to the promised land.
Oh, look at that.
You know, I've spent, you know, over 3 years now in this manosphere, and I was caught up in that. And I've seen the metamorphosis of Rollo Tomassi. Okay. I've seen him go from a man to I guess you guys call it a transformer, to a transformer. And regardless of how many lives he's saved, because that's what he lives on, I get that. And I'll never take that away from a man. But to take shots at me and saying that he's my idol, you can go fuck yourself, Rollo. You're a turd. You're a piece of shit is what you are. So you are welcome to come on anytime on this stream and man up. Okay, there you go. Man up, like we talked about. And I remember thinking about Pat Stedman and the words that Rollo used to talk about him. I know you, Pat, you went back and forth with Rollo for years. And I always call Pat Rollo's nemesis. And I didn't like Pat. And it's because of the garbage that came out of Rollo's mouth. What happens is, this is what's happened to the red pill, okay? The red pill used to be helpful, okay? The red pill is no longer helpful. The red pill has been bastardized by the Rollo pill. And I'm glad there's the Tony pill now. So Rollo, we have a Tony pill. We don't have a Rollo pill. So, and the Tony pill is adapt, accountability, and be authentic, which those are 3 things that every guy in that panel needs to do, okay? And there's one thing. I have no skeletons in my closet, but I know you guys got a lot of them. And I'm pretty sure I know most of them. So I'm going to leave it right there.
Well, I just want to say one thing real quick. I actually going to take a different tact, and I would really like to thank Rollo and to show a lot of appreciation to him, because if it wasn't for Rollo being a dumb fuck in picking a fight with me in 2017, I wouldn't have a multi-6-figure business. So thank you, Rollo. You made my business, and I know that you'd be very happy to hear that.
You know, even when I first came on to this scene a couple years ago, like I always, you know, when I saw Pat doing his thing, because I saw so many other people, you know, spouting whatever, you know, nonsense that were the predicators of like an evil woman and all this. I mean, just like way out stuff. Like, you might as well just flip a coin and like, if it lands on tails, she's a slut type stuff. You know, I mean, like just really way out stuff. And I was always like, wow, Pat's actually the one giving the most legit advice out of all these dudes. And that was, I mean, probably close to 3 years back now. There is one of the things you got to look at, though, is that everybody's shaped by their experiences, man. And like when people go through these gnarly experiences, that's the lens that their world is being seen through, you know? So if and I hate to do this because we hear so much like nowadays with a lot of the woke shit about, you know, this is my truth, that's my truth, right? Well, I mean, if you've just been crapped on by every female in your life and have just constantly just gone out with hoes and trashy chicks and whatever, then your truth is going to be that women are garbage, right? And it probably won't occur to you that maybe you're the garbage one that needs to, you know, take out some of your own mess, and that's why you keep picking these people, right? But I mean, that's what I see a lot of with people that identify themselves as part of that group or whatever, is there's a lot of broken stuff, you know, a lot of skeletons in the closet. By the way, Tony, that's a very Italian thing. I know all the skeletons, and we're just going to leave it at that. I mean, you'd be like one of my uncles or something, man. It's like just coming with it. But you know, that's what it is, man, and that's people's truths. And by the way, hold the truth, man. You ever thought about voiceover work? You got it. Anybody ever hit you up about that? Because you got the voice, man. Like I can hear you doing some smooth voiceover work, man.
I've tried, man. It's one of those hard. You know, you think it'd be something easy. You just look online and apply for a job. Nah, man. It's one of those things, man. You know, you gotta know somebody. I know somebody.
Oh yeah.
It's all a joke, you know. But you know, I would say this, man, and I think one thing we get wrong, and you know, I think you were talking about, Bobby, about the shades, is that what a lot of men in the, you know, especially in the red pill section, don't realize is that we men do live a black and white existence when it comes to the law. When it comes to the legal stature, we're held to a black and white scenario. And I'll use you know, Michael Foster as an example. You see Michael Foster, a man of the church, a man who's bettered himself. You know what I'm saying? He does not deserve or should seek out a woman where she's damaged. He's worked on himself. He's at a pinnacle. He's at a point where he's bettered himself. He shouldn't be seeking to fix something. You know, you don't buy a car that's wrecked. I'm gonna spend 30 grand on this car so I can have the privilege of fixing it, when you as a man live a black and white existence when it comes to the eye of the law. The thing is this, the way I look at it, if a woman is damaged goods, we shouldn't be held accountable for somebody's life, you know. And even I've seen it where, you know, around where I'm at, you've seen some homeless people that I used to know that partied, got drugged up and messed up. Now they're asking you for money. Now they're holding my life accountable. They're limiting what I can do with my life, so I should be responsible for their bad choices in life. The way I look at it as a man, with the way the laws are, we have to understand, you know, it's either we get the best we deserve, because the risk and what we're putting in is black and white. There's no such thing as the cops come into Tony's house and, you know, they see Tony grating the cheese with the leather jacket on, and they say he was being nonviolent towards the girl he's with. Tony's getting locked up. You know, so the way I look at it is, men, we got to understand, we deserve the best, and we deserve what we want to put in. And also, like JP said, you're not entitled to anything, but at the same time, as a man, with us existing in a black and white existence in the eye of the law, you know what I mean? We can't sacrifice or risk our lives for less. I think that's what Shift was saying, is we're not supposed to be fixing or trying to fix any damaged goods, man. It's damaged. That's their life. They're adults. You know, a woman that can't accept accountability for what she's done, where you have to fix it, then how can you try to bring in a child or a successful relationship? You know what I mean? We're not supposed to fix anything. A man is supposed to take something that's already working condition. Now, if it gets damaged along the way due to us, you know what I mean? Maybe a woman got traumatized because she saw Tony slap somebody with the leather jacket on, and you know, that's on Tony. You know.
But hold the truth, man. Like that, I don't know, man. It's like one of those. Well, to bring up on what you were saying about, you know, not fixing, you know, broken and damaged people and all that. I mean, on social media and all that stuff, like you see a lot of guys, like they'll talk about, you know, how women deck themselves out as far as like appearance goes. Like some guys be like, well, you know, I don't want a woman with bright colored hair. I don't want a woman that wears makeup, but they're getting their message towards women that wear makeup. And it's like, and I'm like, dude, 90% of the truth is in the obvious, man. Like, if you don't want a woman with makeup, then you see this chick with makeup on, then dude, like that should be like a no-go off the bat. I mean, depending on what you're attracted to and none of that. But a lot of these guys, like they try to bend the spoon, so to speak, and try to like convince and argue with this chick about why she doesn't want to wear, why she shouldn't wear makeup and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, like if you don't like makeup, that's fine. She likes makeup, that's fine too. I mean, if you don't like it, just take the obvious hint and keep it pushing. You know, find a chick that doesn't wear makeup and, you know, see if that works out for you.
Well, JP, it's a great point, and just to really emphasize this, it's not about you should or shouldn't go after like a damaged girl versus, you know, there's none of this savior complex stuff. Savior complex is external.
I know, Pat, but I'll just make like a generalized example, like a comparison, basically.
No, 100%. I just this whole thing of like going to save a woman, this is an externalization. It's a fantasy that if I can save this woman, then she's going to give me something. There's some sort of, you know, it's a validation thing. If I can save her, I'm a man. I'm a good guy, right? It's all ridiculous. My only point, just speaking more generally, is that guys will find themselves drawn to women, and sometimes the women have some issues. And the point here is that if you find yourself drawn to a woman with issues, it's an indication of unconscious issues that you have yourself. And while it, you know, a lot of the work I do with clients is trying to get them to go through these women as quickly as possible. Like way I like to describe it, because I could tell them, like, look, she's bad for you. She's going to fuck you over, but you're going to date her anyway.
I mean, yeah, but you know, birds of a feather flock together, whether consciously or unconsciously. So the unconscious part is the more scarier part because it's like you're not aware of it. But
well, that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, just this is my kind of shtick in the manosphere, is that they're very unaware of unconscious impulse, in how, you know, they can like you're saying, they can go and they can complain about women who wear makeup and everything, but then all their actions are designed to attract women who wear makeup, right? I mean, that's like a neurosis. Like, you're not acknowledging things that are going on under the surface. And I'm not going to go and try to speculate on that right now. But the point is that there are these unconscious impulses, and then you want to argue with the girl about doing it. Well, why do you even give a fuck? Like, why do you give a fuck? Why do you care at all about this? So one of the things that I do with guys, I think it's really important, is that when a guy has an unconscious impulse towards a woman, you want to tell him exactly what's going on, but don't stop him. Because if you try to stop him, he's going to do it anyway, but he's going to go in with more ego resistance. So, like, I like to describe it. It's like, all right, you're going to go in the quicksand. Let me just tie this rope around you first. And then I let him go in. He's like, oh, fuck, it's quicksand. I'm like, yeah, let's pull you out. And so then, because they expose themselves to it, then they can move through it in maybe a month when it might otherwise take them years.
Well, Pat, I'm gonna drop son. One thing Pat just said, man, and a lot of men don't understand that, is that there's a lot of men, especially due to the fact that, you know, fatherhood is becoming, you know what I'm saying, it's becoming a vigilante thing. Oh my God, he's got a father. You know what I'm saying? It's such a rare thing these days, you know. But what Pat's basically saying, there are certain men that they wear their heart on their sleeve, where you could see their weak point. You know, the fact that a man will just, you know, try to start a relationship with a girl based on is attraction to her, as the leading goal towards the long-term aspect, that man is already doomed. He's already in his way. And I think what Pat is saying is some men, they're going to walk through the fire, man. And if they survive and walk out, not fully burned or with third-degree burns, they'll learn something, but I just think a lot of guys, man, they don't know. Like, for example, we're on this panel. Every man here on this panel isn't wearing their heart on their chest. You can't see it. You're not over emotional. You keep that hidden, and you're under control. But the problem is due to the fact that the majority of men didn't have a father in their life. They don't know how to control their emotions around a woman. They don't know that just because she's a woman don't mean you just show your heart on your sleeve. You still gotta keep that thing hidden, and slowly, depending on her worth and depending on you vetting her and all that stuff, then you can slowly maybe hint a little and showcase it. But a lot of men right now, from especially in the red pill community and a lot of men here anyway, you could see the damage because the majority of men wear their hearts on their sleeves. That's why we got guys crying, bitching and saying it was her fault. She controlled me. She made me do this. She made me do that. No, that's an over emotional man that can't tuck his heart inside. He wears it right on his chest. But once he comes around a panel around guys, especially if you notice the whole alpha phase going in the manosphere, how all these guys will say, how you could be an alpha in front of a woman, how you pump your chest out. But in front of other guys, they're just silent and calm, and they don't even mention the word alpha. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of guys just don't have that training of you can't lead with your heart, man. Especially in this black and white system when it comes to a man legal. You gotta lead with your mind, man. And I think what Pat's trying to say is, man, they're gonna do it anyway. They're just looking for someone they can talk to, can at least help them out. They could turn back to when they walk out of that fire, if they walk out.
I want to bring something up to the panel. I'm, in my opinion, I believe we have to make women better. We have to make them better. And with that being said, as men, we make things better. We have to come to, and y'all may or may agree or disagree with this. We have to come to an agreement to what boundaries what standards are we going to set going forward, whether you be a father like Mike, whether I don't have kids yet. What's the standard for women if we're going to make them better? What do we want out of women? I think all of us would agree we want women to meet their fullest, best potential as women. So at that point, what boundaries do we draw up to say, how can we get women to reach their best, their fullest potential as women? And I feel like there's got to be some sort of agreement on that with men. For example, one of my standards that I feel, generally speaking, is that women belong in the home. Women should not be going to college and university. In the Christian community, like me and Mike are both Christians, and I think some of y'all are too. There's this thing I believe that's going around that it's sort of like, okay, young lady, go get that degree first, go work until you find a husband. But ultimately, what they want for the Christian girls is to find husbands, raise kids. So why are we telling them to go to university and work until they find a husband? Makes no sense. So the boundaries and the standards have to be made clear again, and they're just sort of all over the place. And that's just, I want y'all's opinion on that because it's just something I wanted to share.
Well, I just wanted to say something because I wanted to comment on what Hold the Truth said. I think the crisis of boys being raised without fathers is having dramatic impact on men, and then by extension on women, and then as society as a whole. And I think that that's not, I mean, it's talked about in the manosphere, but it's not talked about, in society as a whole because, well, reasons. And I was just wondering, Pat, like, I'm guessing maybe you be out of business if there was fatherhood was something that was respected like it used to be. And I'm guessing a lot of you would have a lot less clients if fatherhood was something that was respected as it once was. And I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts on that.
Well, I'll go real quick. It's funny you said that, because one of my comments yesterday, I've got some beard trim videos on my channel. And one of the comments yesterday was real simple. It just said, "Thanks, Dad." Very simple. And to me, that's the best comment I could ever have. I've got one about probably 2 months ago. I put it on Instagram, and he said, "Some of us don't have fathers to show us these things." And he said, "Much love and appreciate you." To me, those are the best comments I could ever get on any video that I do. I mean, that just shows me the lack of fathers. The father is the one that would show you how to trim your beard.
Yeah. How you like? Because I don't know. I'm not going to ask, but I'll just share. I was raised. I didn't meet my father until I was 21, and I didn't realize how much of an impact that had on me until like years later. And I dealt with some stuff. And I realized that so many of the challenges that not just men, I think just society as a whole has, is because of this. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear insights on people on that, because I think it's, everybody says it like, yeah, but I don't know, maybe Pat's got more insight into it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's 100% a major hat that I wear with this. And I think it's an unconscious thing. I don't think people are like, oh, well, I want to go work with Pat because, I want to have like a dad influence on me. Especially if I'm not even like,
super... Pat, man, don't be ashamed of that, man.
No.
Of being called Papa Pat, man.
call him Pat Daddy.
Pat Daddy. But there's no doubt about it. And some clients have even at a certain point, verbalized it. It is 100% looking for like male masculine guidance in their lives. They're looking for somebody who they feel like they can trust to be open with emotionally, and also to get like boundaries and firm guidance on things. I mean, I tell it like it is, but I'm also like, it is a environment where a lot of guys will share things that they just won't share their shit that they couldn't do it because maybe they feel judged by it, whatever. I've heard some crazy shit. But yeah, I would love to be out of a job. I would love to be out of a job, because if I was out of a job, we'd have a healthy society, and I know I'd be productive. I could do other things. A lot of what we're doing here is really just this entire community. We're helping to pick up the pieces and put it back together again.
Well, Pat, I would say this, man. Pat wouldn't be out of business. The thing is, you see, they've romanticized, and we've slipped that propaganda. We've been drinking propaganda, so many men, that they don't remember that when fathers were around, other men had other jobs. There were certain men in the community that were in charge of, leading the camp trips. There were certain men, you would still have a job. The thing they've done is they've made it seem as though if father figures were to come back, any man helping other men would be gone. No, in actuality, you would actually have more business, because more men would be able to trust each other, so they would be able to, Pat, I need you to lead these, what is it, some type of maturity camp thing, we'll leave them all here, we'll come back and pick them up. There would be a lot more, and we used to have that, And to answer what Primal Man brought up, the thing is, I answered this a long time ago. We're in the age of the corporate wife. The whole goal of the modern woman, and women, like I said, I don't blame women. They're pawns in a man's game. The reason they push women should go to college first is that a woman should use her youth and her energy, to, build a towards being loyal to the corporations first. Because here's the real deal, man. If a chick was 20 years old, let's say she's 23.
But hold the truth. We know all this stuff though. We know these things. So what's the solutions though? What's the solutions?
Well, the thing is with that, man, and here's the trick to it. And the MRA were the ones that gave us the solution. The solution is that there is none until the system is starved out of men to the point where we turn our backs. You already see the news and all of them. You already see Georgia taking away baby deletion rights without, it being something, a form of domestic abuse or stuff. The system has to react to us men turning our back. And the thing what men got to understand is that you're only right now, you could find a woman, she could be perfect here and there, whatever, but you're, as a man, us living in the black and white section of the law, we all know it's a ticking time bomb, and we're only going to be privileged and be allowed what her emotion allows us to see. But I'd say this, man, there is, in this system, there ain't no solution. There's only a matter of accepting it. If you want a woman in your life and you're willing to take the risk and whatever's going to come with it, or good and bad, then all you can do is go with it. But as a man, in the words of Tony, you have to be accountable. You have to be accountable for your decisions. If your goal is to have a relationship here, just accept accountability. I said in the comment section, the reason single men are having an issue with married men is that the married men tend to not be accountable. They won't say, if something goes wrong, I'm going to accept that. I'm going to accept the fact that I got married and whatever happened, happened. I accepted this journey. I'm not going to blame my ex-wife. I'm not going to blame any issues that came with it, because the divorce or the marriage or the separation, it's all part of that journey of me getting with her to begin with. That's why the single man has a very negative, aspect when they look at a married man, because the majority of married men will only be accountable for the good in the relationship. My wife and I do this, do that. But when something happens negatively, that married man won't be accountable. He won't accept the role he played or the role of this journey called marriage or a girlfriend, whatever. It's part of that journey. And the way I look at it, the only solution we have is acceptance. You know what I'm saying? We're being served boiled eggs, man. It doesn't matter how much you want it scrambled. The only thing the country's serving is hard boiled eggs, man. So you either gonna eat the eggs here or you look somewhere else. The solution is simple. The solution is acceptance, man. That's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, let's take Pat Stedman, for example. Okay. And I think sometimes what I think Gene Primal Man, I think he's concentrated on the United States, on this continent, in other words. So, I mean,
this applies for anyone, any family. These are things that
I understand that, but we live in a different society. The United States is not what it was. So we're seeing, I think, a distorted view of the world. We're seeing a view of the world that's here. I mean, Pat Stedman himself. Pat Stedman went to Poland and found his traditional wife. I mean, there's an example right there. And he's happily married, has a baby. I mean, so the world's a big place now. So I think sometimes we focus on what's so close to us.
If no one's focusing on what's in front of us in America right now, then who will?
It's over, man.
Well, how can
it's not over. It's
absolutely over. The bankers,
as long as you have breath and blood running through your body.
Look look at Business Channel News. Look what the Fed chairman presidents that retired recently. They've been trading $100 million and they got away scot-free with insider trading. And the debt ceiling is $30 trillion, and they want to pass even more. This country is done. It's over.
Look, I'm gonna make my point on this, because I've been very public about this. If anybody wants to Google me, they can understand that I'm pretty, involved. Okay. this system is going to completely collapse. That's 100% correct. It's going to happen a lot sooner than people think. It's going to collapse. The United States, as we know it, is over. It's not over. One thing that people need to understand is that this stuff is so much in our face right now. This only happens before systems collapse. This whole belief, I say this with total respect. I don't like hearing like it's done, they won, they control it. They are scared shitless right now.
Right.
They are
Amen,
really fucking afraid of what's coming. And yeah, the system's going to collapse, but we're going to come out of it stronger. This is the end for them, not for us. This is my opinion. I believe that good things are coming. We are going to go through a very, very serious tribulation, but we build the future. We build the future right here. What we're doing, these are seeds of the future. And I don't feel in me whatsoever that we have nothing to build, nothing to look forward to, that it's all over, that they won.
What I mean is that the country itself, its former glory of America, what it used to be, is gone. You have to accept that, you know, and an empire eventually falls. Look at the rise of China. You know, they have the art of business. We America have the art of war, and now they're not going to war anymore.
It's all propaganda.
I got a question for
they get their
Shift. What's your solution? What's your solution?
What's my solution? My solution is basically you can go through the entire world. Honestly, you don't have to live in America. Just like Pat, he recently said he found his wife in Poland. I mean, if you want to get married,
run is the solution.
I mean, you have to go where the trend is going. You got to find.
Or you set the trend. You make a new trend.
I want to link hold the truth and primal man here. Like what is the solution? How do you make women better when the system incentivizes? Like when the systems become a better husband than most men in America, how can you make women be better to men?
I'll hop on.
And I think hold the truth is saying is a solution that can make women better, because if men peace out and look for other options, women have to become better.
I mean,
that's not
it's just going to turn into another.
But here's what I would say is there's a part of the problem is guys think a little too big, right? They try to, this is the whole Jordan Peterson make your bed, right? Take dominion, take control in areas you have control. Do y'all hear me? Am I fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. Go.
All right, just make sure. I think part of the problem when I hear these conversations is we're trying to fix these insanely large macro systems that are very, very complicated. And when we look at them, it's real easy to lose heart. And it's real easy to think, how can you stop it? And to
demoralization. Yep.
Some of the point you guys are making, yeah, empires do rise and fall, and sometimes they're reborn, right? And they take on new characteristics or whatever. That's the history. Usually they last just a couple hundred years at best. But so I think that's first off, I think much smaller and more locally on purpose. Not that I don't listen to what's going on nationally, but I try to ask, like, can I act on how does this affect today, this week, this month? Does it at all? Like most news doesn't, right? It serves a different purpose. So one is start thinking a little more local. I do think we're going to go through some difficult times and come out on the other side pretty well. There has to come a point in our life though where you stand your ground, and because of integrity of who you are as a man, that you don't back down. And I don't say that as like some gun-ho. I think a lot of people when they talk about secession are idiots, and they don't understand we're in like 5th generation warfare tactics. It's like internet propaganda. They talk about guns. These guys are just idiots that literally are been watching too much TV. They're like watching like old World War II like we haven't evolved really far beyond that. So I think we're in a civil war right now. For anyone that's watching, it's really a hot civil war. It's cold, and that the whole nation hasn't fully realized it yet.
A war of ideas, ideologies.
Let me say something that I caught Pat say a while. I don't think we're in a civil war. It's more like a revolutionary war. And I heard Pat make that distinction. And that's if you want to make that point again, Pat.
Yeah. So I think that and I'm going to ask people, we all agree that things are collapsing, that things are going this negative direction I mean, the system's collapsing. Okay. We can all agree upon that. But what we have to be really cautious about is they want a civil war. Understand that. They want a civil war. They want us to talk about secession. They want us to be divided against ourselves. They want us to think China's so big and powerful. Who the fuck do you think controls our politicians? It's China. Okay? China and the globalists control our politicians because they use China as their manufacturing base. And they're trying to destroy this country. So whenever you say stuff like, well, you know, China's so far ahead and China's going to take over, you are falling for propaganda. That is demoralization propaganda that's being shoved down your throat. That country's a piece of shit. It's a piece of shit. You can't even breathe in it. It's a piece of shit. They're not going to take over the world. If they were to take over the world, your organs would get harvested. So you better not think that you can do some geo arbitrage and jump over there and bang some like Chinese girl and wife her up and be trad in communist China. I mean, this is where we stand now. We stand now. And if you want to fix women, you stand, because the reason women are disgusted with men in part is because the men are weak. Big fucking fat slobs watching television all day, you know, beer, bacon, and maybe they got a gun collection. There is no actual courage on the ground of men willing to say, you know what, I'm not going to comply. I'm not going to comply. And so this distinction between a civil war and a revolutionary war is that they want it to be a civil war because there's still a large percentage of the population under mind control, but it's a lot smaller than you think. It's a lot smaller than you think at this point. People are afraid. They're confused. They don't know what's going on. But I can tell you, in shitlib, New Jersey, where I am, in a shitlib town, I do quotes because I don't think it's ever really been as bad as it's been made out to be, because I think that there's theft and whatever that goes on in the state, and that's well documented. But I can tell you right now, with an election coming up in 1 month, I've walked like 10-mile radius from my house, epicenter of shitlibness, one sign in support of the Democratic governor. And like every 10 houses has signs supporting Republicans. Now, I'm not saying that means anything directly, but I'm telling you, I've never seen it before. I've never seen anything like it before. And I'm telling you, if you go and you talk to people, they don't like what's happening. They just don't know what to do. And they have a hard time believing that the amount of evil that's being perpetuated, they have a hard time believing that it's possible, but they're coming around to it. And so if we stop with this shit like, oh, well, red states, you know, got to secede from the blue states, and we start to focus on that we're Americans, we're humans, and we don't like this shit, and we're not going to comply with it, it becomes a revolutionary war. And that's what we're waiting for. That is the patience that you see going on. We're patient. They're rushing.
Yeah, and
we're patient.
I want to entertain some of these revolutionary ideas, because we're in a war of ideas and ideologies, a revolutionary war. So I just wanted to bring that up and discuss some revolutionary ideas, and I shared two of them with you. So, these are revolutionary, but we kicked the can of compromise too far, and that's in our face now. So, amen to Pat, Mike, and all you guys. Y'all go ahead and jump in on that.
Well, I'm gonna say this to hop on what Pat's saying, and you know, Michael Foster was saying, dude. The problem with us is this, man, and this is why I say we live in the past. How come every time we got to change something, we got to have a solution, men have to die? You know what I'm saying? We're reversing what the generation that came before us did. And that's a cultural revolution. You know, men have become unpredictable. For the first time in in over 30 years, you know, all of us on this panel, if we were to bring this technology back, let's say in the 1970s, all of us will be married, wife and kids. We'd all be doing the same thing. For the first time in history, men are unpredictable. And we're already, there's a revolution already starting, like, you know, such as Pat said, with a macro approach. The fact that, Michael, the fact that Michael said he's leading a smaller community. We're slowly, every man is doing his own step. And we're in the age of cultural revolution. And shout out to Pops. You know, then you have the nukes, you got the juice. And as I said to people, we're in the nuke standard. You know, too many times we compare this society to the Romans, the Mongols and all these. They didn't have nukes, man. What's going on is that the revolution is starting, is that men are decaying what the government wants men to do. For the first time in history, such as Pat said, men are voting. For example, Trump had a lot of blacks and minorities vote for him. And the government just freaked out, you know, and you know their playbooks are falling apart. You know, I don't know if anybody here saw The Water Boy. If you saw The Water Boy, that coach, his playbook, he ran out of plays, and that's what's going on with the government. The government's gonna function; they're gonna make some money here and there, but you know, men aren't gonna be celebrating Thanksgiving like they used to. The holidays aren't working anymore. We're no longer predictable. There's a cultural revolution. We've realized from the MRA that, you know, you playing by their games. Let's get some picket fences, vote, change, vote. That doesn't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? So what men are learning is that, no, let's culturally change. You know, Tony Bruno has a stream where he's talking to men and he's changing them culture. These men watching his stream right now aren't watching the news. So that means Tony's having effect. The 21, 22, you know, at the peak, you had 31 people watching this stream. Guess what they're not doing? They're not watching the local news. They're unpredictable. So how do you, and then Tony's not up for sale, or they're not aware of Tony. There's hundreds of channels going live, taking the public away from the propaganda, which is usually a cultural aspect. We're changing things from a cultural standpoint, and culture beats the law. The law cannot defeat cultural tradition, and that's what's going on, is that we're changing things. Us being on this panel right now, different ages, different country, different religion, different marital status. This didn't happen, man. It used to be when the politicians would do the numbers, well, the married men are voting this way. The unmarried men are voting that way. Look at this panel right here. Tell me how we're voting. We're unpredictable right now, and that's the true danger. The empire ain't gonna fall. What's gonna happen is they're gonna lose the culture. They're gonna lose the tradition. We're not falling for it no more. And eventually, just like you see Alabama, the laws will change because they notice we still need these men in this system. So we're gonna have to change the law due to cultural reasons. You know, all of a sudden Georgia's pulling away the baby deleting. You know, all these other states are changing. Such as Pat said, they're voting Republican, but the person voting Republican doesn't look like the old Republican voter of the year 2000. You know what I'm saying? We're changing things on a cultural standpoint. Such as JP said, the system failed when everybody got together to vote. So how can we change that? We change that culturally. You can't get any votes from a group of guys that work on a moral and cultural compass. We're in a cultural panel right now, and our panel is about morality. So how do you number us? How do you get the stats off of us? You can't. You have to bend to our will, man. And that's what's going on. That's the revolution. We're the revolution. You know what I'm saying?
They can't operate without us. They can't operate without us. I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah, but Pat, you also said that, I think it was you who said that we don't, everybody knows there's something wrong. And you were saying, like, you know, you walk within 10-mile radiuses of your home, and the, you know, majority of people were against the current governor, but people are still you know, they're angry and dissatisfied, and but they're still atomized and isolated, and they're basically rudderless. So I that could just as easily go against what we're for as for it. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, yes, there's been a lot of attempts to try to atomize the population. I mean, why do you think they shut down all sort of community gathering spaces, especially where men go? I mean, why do you think that's such a big push? The American Revolution started in churches. I mean, one of the first things they shut down was churches.
Yeah, the Great Awakening. Right?
Yeah. Shut down churches, shut down gyms, shut down places where men would congregate in particular. Don't go and talk to your neighbor except, but they have tried to censor social media, but the truth is still gotten out. We're not there yet. To your point, we're not there yet. There's a lot of people who there's going to have to be some bigger shocks. I think Afghanistan was a very big shock. I'll just prognosticate a bit. We're going to see a lot of deaths this year from a certain something, and that's going to shock a lot of people. It's already happening. I mean, I know people personally. There's dissonance about why it's happened. It's going to accelerate as we get into fall and winter. The economy, okay, people maybe don't care. Well, stock market goes up, Fed prints $1 trillion. So what? My portfolio goes up, even though it's just barely keeping track with inflation. They're not thinking about it. But what happens if the economy crashes? I mean, we're getting to this point. We are really getting to this point. The system is not able to continue to hold up the lies in the dissonance. It's not going to last. So when these things start to happen, does it start to shock people further awake? My contention is that it will. I see the outcome as inevitable. And my advice for people is don't be stupid. Get your house in order and do not get crushed by the wave when the system collapses. I mean, don't be caught in the building. There's a lot of people who refuse to see what's happening, and they're chaining themselves to the building that's under demolition. It's not going to be pretty. The ones who got out of the building and we're like, last call, like, get out right now. That's what we're doing. With us who are outside of it, we're going to be building the new society. I'm an optimist about it, but I'm not an optimist out of like some sort of naivety. I understand these people. If anybody here has a right to be pessimistic, it would be me. If anybody who's familiar with my situation. Yeah, I got some serious skin in the game here, but I'm very, very optimistic about where it's going. I know what fear and desperation looks like. That's all I see from them. But a cornered animal can still be dangerous.
Actually, that's when an animal is most dangerous, when it's
always leave and escape.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I always said about the difference between the liberals or the communists or social, whatever you want to call them, and people more on the right, is that a liberal would rather burn it to the ground. If they're given the choice of lose control or destroy it all, they'll destroy it all. They would just hit, if I can't have it, no one will. Let's hit the nuke button. Whereas people on the right they're like, no, let's not do that. There's a chance that we can rebuild. So I think that's the real danger there. Because from what I see from socialists is they're like, fuck it, if we're losing control, destroy it all. I mean, they're really like that. And, they're godless people anyway.
They're demoralized. That's what a demoralized card plays into the fact that they want.
So one thing I'll just say that I have some deep professional insight on due to my day job is I don't think people understand what's going on with the supply chain. I don't think they understand how significant the challenges that we're going to face through the winter.
Semiconductors. Oh my God.
It's all right. Every year there's huge problems across the globe, floods here, whatever. When you have a pandemic, that the shutdown, and a sandsemic, a lack of labor, lack of workers due to having less kids, baby boomers retiring, abortion. All this killed our workforce in America. So there's like a severe we don't have enough labor. The Democrats are trying to say it's because there's not livable wages, but no, it's math to some degree. That might be part of it. I'm not saying that wages don't affect, but it is in large. There's not as many people in these upcoming generations as there were in the previous generations. So, I mean, it's bottom line. Replacement rates like what 1.74 is not a good place to be as a country. So that means all those problems that happen, we can't absorb them. It's like a body that has AIDS, right? Like a cut or a cold become a major deal. So all these things that happen across the floods in Brazil, the pesticide shortages in China, the lack of tomatoes, the fact that we don't have enough shipping containers and that's not going to be taken care of to 2023. The fact that we're out of butane diol across the I mean, it's getting nuts. That we've seen a 300% increase, 200% in steel costs in the last about year and a half. The shortages are weird shortages too. Like Pat said, semiconductors. Basically, Intel is not able to make enough chips, so chips are going to be back down to 2023, which means that's why BMW and Toyota cut 40% of their production. And one of the car companies, which I forget, stopped production through the end of the year. Right. So these things that are missing are, I don't want to use, it's pretty close to catastrophic.
Yeah.
Like we're in like territory that no one understands. So they're like, it takes 10 different people to receive 10 different positions to receive something off a ship. Okay. And a lot of those people got Biden bucks, they're not working, or they got laid off, or they got sick, or things haven't got up. So that's part of the reason we can't get the containers off the ships at all the ports fast enough. If you can't get someone to operate the crane. If you can't get the crane operator, you can't get someone to drive the truck. There's a huge shortage. There's been a trucker shortage for a long time. So a lot of the problems now are long time problems that have become massive deals. And I'm telling you, man, you should have a dry pantry right now. If you're talking about like the nation falling all this crap and you don't have like just some of the most, I don't want to say what I have online. I moved out to the country and been ahead of this for a bit. And there's real practical like things you should be stocked up on, because part of the problem is once these people connect the dots. Here tonight, I'll give you a challenge. Go to 2 different stores, okay? Just 2 different stores. Walk the aisles and look at the bare spots. If there's not a bare spot, look how deep the product line goes. So what you'll have is, it used to be like Captain Crunch, and it's like back, but it's now like Captain Crunch. What they're doing is they're taking all the stuff and laying it out to make the shelves look like they don't have bald spots. But if you go look, like it'll stick out to you weird. You're like, what?
Not in Florida. Not in Florida.
No.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
here. Not here.
You don't have that problem down there yet?
Not at all.
Not with Captain Crunch.
In fact, I had sent Primal Man and Gonzo a picture one day about, no meat here at this meat case. It was only about a month ago. And I was I happened to be in shopping, and there's not that problem. I haven't experienced that problem here in my town anytime. The only thing that I couldn't get was toilet paper and paper towels, and that was it. And that was like a year ago. And that's
last point real quick, I'll just say, is when people, the other problem you have is, like, if you're a good driver, there's still the other drivers on the road, right? So the other problem you have is once people start to even perceive a serious supply chain, all states, if you have people that freak out, will have problems. Even if they do have a local supply chain that's pretty good, which that'd be awesome. I mean, maybe we all do move to Florida and stay with Tony. But
I paid $6 for 2x6s today. Okay. Right. 4 months ago, those were $13, $14 each.
Yeah. Some of that stuff's unlocking. And the thing is, there wasn't a lumber shortage. There was getting the lumber. Yeah. That other stuff. And so
my cousin's husband works at a lumber company, and he was talking about the administrative bullshit that was holding them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, but you were keep going on what you were saying though.
Well, one thing my mom asked me, she said, "Mike, what can we do about this? How can we be prepared for this?" And I was just, "Mom, I'm gonna be straight with you. We can't. Like we're a soft people. We're fat. We're out of shape. We don't have our local communities. We don't have dry pantries. We don't have deep freezes. You know, growing up, like we don't have these things. Now we can start to get prepared. But I'm telling you, you should know your neighbors. You should become friends with your neighbors. You should get involved in your local community. You know, like to Pat's, like I tell my people in my church, look, when you talk to people, don't get stuck on labels. Don't talk about Republican, Democrat, because even if you are one of those things, which is totally like, it's fine to be a Republican, but probably not. they're almost as bad.
Yeah, man, Pat, man, that's like you broke character. You were giving, you were playing you were giving the acting scene and.
Two sides of the same coin.
I mean, they told Mike, "Yo, man, hug a non-Republican," and he said, "I can't play really this role anymore."
Republican, Democrats, Pepsi, Coke. I get it. Anyway. Yeah. All I was going to say is that those people want safe neighborhoods. Those people want food. Those people want to be able to walk. You know, like most people are people. They're made in the image of God. And basic desire. Yeah, there's outliers, there's crazy people and French people, but you get to know your neighbors. Ultimately, you have a lot of the same you want out of life, right? But people don't know because we don't form real relationships, and that's why we're so vulnerable right now. That's why we say county before country. You know, get to know your people.
Yeah, and I just to emphasize that last point. I mean, in all seriousness, though, the labels are part of the division. You know, all these various things, whether it's, you know, black or white, Republican, Democrat, there's a million different ways that they have tried to divide us. Male versus female. I mean, it's another major part of it. You know, the whole push in feminism. And I would argue that aspects of the red pill are kind of controlled opposition because they feed into this sort of, you know, resentment between men and women. The point here is to come together and focus on, well, who are the people who are actually fucking us? You know, someone throws a snake into your garden, and are you even like, you know, this whole wave of people? I mean, it's unreal. I mean, we're talking minimum 200K per month, like whole small cities coming across every single month. And it's really people, you know, it's children being trafficked, in prisons being emptied across the world, being taken over here on container ships, you know, whole air fleets moving people on rotation, one-way tickets. Hey, do you want to spend 10 years in prison, or do you want to come to America? We'll drop you off there. You know, that's the kind of shit. It's like very, very serious business. We need to come together and focus on who's doing this stuff. Why are they doing it? It's not about, we don't get into this stuff about, well, you see, haha, you know, serves you right. You know, you voted for Biden, whatever. Like, if they're waking up, make it easy for them. Make it easy for them. Don't come with an attitude. We have to, the more that we come together, the easier it's going to be, the smoother the process is going to be. They would love us to focus on each other and not them. And just to make this final emphatic point, if you would get the civil war that people really want, you know, some people want because, you know, they think maybe I'll be tough and everything. No idea how bad it would be. No comprehension. No fucking comprehension how bad a civil war in this country would be. You would have targeted killings in various areas. You start to have massive population transfers, and all the while you had people in the military fighting, you know, the people in the military getting watched by other people in the military and tons of paramilitary action, then you'd have other countries like China, and not just China, who would be funding both sides to keep the war going.
Picking up pieces.
Yep. Picking up pieces.
Yeah.
They all the
not the
United we stand, divided we fall. That's it.
Well, I say this to what Pat was saying and what Mike was saying is that what people gotta understand is, man, the Civil War was funded by the government, man. A lot of these people that say we need a civil war, then you're asking a government funded war. You know, that's why they're afraid of somebody saying revolution. And to go back to what Mike was saying with the shipping is that the amount of damage the liberals are willing to do for the sake of, you know, we own you. The fact that we went from last year where it was, well, if you had it and your immunity kicked it, you'll be okay, to now it's illegal for your own body to defeat something without the government, you know, involved, you know, and they're willing to sacrifice shipping. Because I saw it where a lot of shipping companies can't do it because they have to pass this whole, you know, this whole you're not spreading the pandemic crap. You know what I mean? It's they're willing to destroy, but the problem they don't get is
that's what I said about the liberals are willing to destroy it. They're willing to burn it all down.
Oh yeah. But the thing is, dude, you got certain states. What's happened is a lot of states in the country have become their own semi-countries. You know, I'm in Jersey right now, and Jersey, I heard some of the big dogs in Jersey said, "Yo, we're not ending up like New York."
Yep. You heard that too with the mafia.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're gonna force. New York's gonna hold off. They're trying to get as many people as possible because there's some money involved. But what's gonna happen is they're fracturing the country and they're creating something, and it goes back again to culture. You see, Mike has a, you know, as a, you know, a preacher. You have your own culture and a group of people, and what they're creating is the people in Jersey. They're setting up and creating their own culture, and they don't even want to come to New York.
Yep.
You know, and it's going to have damage, and they're the ones that are going to lose because unlike the last generation in the early 2000s where they grew up on TV and propaganda, there are some people all they're watching is this stream, or all they watch are streamers that talk about now, as in the old culture of, you know, 50 years ago, 20 years ago. It doesn't hold any weight on them. And that's why I say we right now, we're the revolution, because we're not spreading that propaganda or that, you know, we don't got Tony reading us news quotes, you know, and News 7 said this and that. No, we're just speaking how it is, and we don't agree on everything, but that's what they're afraid of. And what's going to happen is that all these, you know, politicians, they're losing, man. You know what I mean? My question for anybody in this panel is, how would a Democrat, how would a Republican get my vote? You know, how would they do it when all the old stuff no longer works? You can't get me on, you can't get me on race. You can't get me on freedom or none of that. I mean, for the love of God, Joe Biden, who created the most destructive crime bill, is our president. So how can you sell me on anything? You can't. You know, you just got to watch me. When they call for voting, I'm pissing outside, not even aware that you called for voting. You know what I mean? So to me, man, they've lost, bro. They've lost, and the amount of damage that's being done is generational. You know, some guys on this panel are in their 20s, and they lost these guys forever. You know, so
hey, hold the truth, man. I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off and all that, but even if they do fracture the country, I think it will still work out as far as like the original ideal of what America was supposed to be. You know, people coming together. You know, it's like the Declaration of Independence. You know, individual liberty, all that stuff, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You know, you got the Constitution, religious freedom, and all that stuff. So the only thing I think is crumbling is this idea slash ideal of this American culture thing. And like, I don't think America was ever meant to have like a unified culture. I mean, well, not according to like the visions that the founders printed in their documents, you know, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers. It was like, look, man, like every individual, man, woman, whatever, has the right to practice whatever religion they want, to say whatever they want, freedom of speech and all that stuff, you know, to pursue happiness in whatever way seems best for them, given that they don't violate the freedoms and liberties of another human being. So And of course, and we know in the real world and all that, like different people pursue happiness in different ways. Like everybody's not wired the same. Everybody's not built the same. Everybody doesn't have the same inclinations and all that. Everybody's not going to agree all the time. So I think, people, having differences and then coming together to, share those differences with others to help, meet needs that people couldn't have met on their own is part of what made like our system great. I mean, it was one of the many successes that the system has brought us. I mean, but the piggyback all the way back to what Schiff was saying, he was like, well, the glory days are gone, and he's right. I mean, but you got to realize that, those so-called glory days, like there were failures that necessitated the changes that we're going through now.
At least back like, then, we had a sounding U.S. dollar. The bankers were not printing our money away and devaluing our currency. They're not stopping. You really want to promote change?
You got to understand,
you got to stop the bankers. You got to stop them.
If you got to understand, like the demand came first. I mean, even when the dollar was backed by gold and all that, like people got tired of hauling gold around to spend money. So
No. I'm not talking about the gold. Going back to the gold reserve currency, like gold currency.
Oh no,
that's not going to happen, and that is not practical.
I mean, even if it does happen, it'll still be foolish because people's minds changes and all that. I mean.
No,
who's going to say that? Who's going to say that gold's going to be as valuable now as it was then?
No, probably it will not. That's like that's a pipe dream. But I'm just saying is the system is so twisted and so backwards that we're in a debt system, and the system has to, that's why they keep printing money, and there's more debt in the system. It keeps growing, and as much as we talk about changing women and all that, the system that has to change is really. It's not really fighting who's who, like political parties. It's really, we got to take over the Fed. We got to tell them, you cannot control our money. Look at Andrew Jackson. He shut down the central bankers. That's when America had balls,
Yep.
And America's not balls.
We have balls right now. There's no reason we
And it came back.
Why is no one fighting the bankers then?
Hey, Schiff, even back then, I mean, you still had, even back then, you still had people that were dissatisfied and disgruntled, just like you got people that
are but at least
dissatisfied and disgruntled now.
We lived in freedom back then. Now it's like,
you had people that were
is increasing. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
you have an opportunity. This is to everybody. We have an opportunity right now to be in that sort of great conflict to get our freedoms back. I mean. We keep looking back. Well, back then it was so great. Well, 20 years prior to 30 years, 20, whatever, Andrew Jackson, 15, 20. So about 50 years prior, there was a Revolutionary War. I mean, there were people alive during that time, people serving in Congress who had fought in the Revolutionary War. So we had a very fresh-blooded country. I think we're headed back towards that. A new fresh crop of people who value this stuff again. That new world is not going to be for everybody. There are people who are not going to make it through this transition. It is going to collapse. The economy doesn't work. Economy stops producing things. You have massive shortages. Companies start going under. The Fed prints more money. You have stagflation. The Fed's going to destroy itself. There's no way they can't print their way out of an economy.
The Fed controls the system. The market feeds off the debt. Like you can't. I guarantee you, that once the Fed stops QE, if they stop QE, if at all, this market will plunge 95%.
I agree.
They're not gonna stop. They control this game.
But Schiff, the point is not that. The point is that if they continue to print, and the economy is now overtly not functioning, they're going to get hyperinflation. And
what I think is the bankers. They're one of the smartest people in the world, honestly, the most nefarious, smartest people in the world. They wouldn't be printing this if they know something that's coming that's going to be beneficial to them.
They're trying to collapse the system so they can put us in a digital blockchain system.
Absolutely,
and they can control everything. But that's one plan, and then there's another plan that comes after it. that's assuming that they hold control, and I don't think they're going to have control.
No one's fighting the bankers.
Pat, but
I've been.
Pat,
I mean,
but how?
What do you want to do?
How can you say? How can you say? All right, go ahead.
No, I mean seriously, but what? Okay, no one's fighting the bankers. Letting them destroy the system and then having the population be. I mean, what do you personally intend to do to stop the Fed right now? Besides,
there's not much we could really do, honestly. Besides this, knowing the game of how it's played and also knowing how to adapt and take advantage for yourself and ride on their coattails. That's pretty much all you could do as an individual. I mean, it's far too late because we need the people to rally and go against them. But people are fighting the wrong battle, I think, in my honest opinion. They really got to fight the people that are really those who are closest to the money supply, really make the laws and really control the world. And that's my honest view of it. So we really got to stop these guys, but I think it's just too far gone. I'm just taking it from a logical point of view. This system is so far, decrepit. It's crazy that we really got to stop them. But I just don't see a solution besides this. This getting off the Federal Reserve. Get these Fed predators off. Just look what happened in CNBC. They basically said these guys were tired, yet they were trading $1 million of futures, and they made $100 million of insider trading. Like these guys, they're playing a mockery of us. It's just
politicians do that all the time.
Yeah,
nothing happens.
Yeah, but yo, Shift. But the thing is, man, people are changing the way they live. I mean, Michael Foster just said, yo, he's got a home, off grid, and this thing's becoming a major movement. You got the small homes. Another thing is the fact that a lot of people, we don't speak about the fact that so many people are dropping out and not even getting involved into politics. We talk about the population replacement rate. No one ever talks about the fact that, politicians are dying and other people are just looking at it like, dude, I don't want nothing to do with that shit. You know what I mean? I'm not running for vice president. I'm not running for this. You're starving the system out. We need to remember that the true. I'm 33, man. The truth is we're starving out the system anyway, man. We don't look at the fact that, what used to be, they would call you a homeless or a crazy person. People are living in their vans. People have changed their lives and they're not going with the narrative anymore, man. The politicians are starving for replacements, and the replacements they have are young in appearance, but crazy. Like, for example, Pat, when you said you moved out of New York, I forget the name of that chick that she's
AOC.
some Spanish chick.
Yeah.
AOC, tax the rich. My God, I am like planning to actually go back. Like, I'm going to Croatia in a month. Like, just get out of here because the Croatian president said no more jab mandates. It's done. And I'm like, oh shit, it's time to get out of here. It's like, I'm done.
Nice.
New York City, it is. If this city falls, then America falls. It's been falling.
All right, real quick, Rip. I gotta. But first, I wanted to ask Pat. After let's say the Fed's whatever the plan is supposedly. What's the next step after that? How is let's say things are going to go? Let's say your way or the conservatives' way. Or just the simplest breakdown. If you could give me in a quick breakdown, if you could just kind of go over.
Well, I mean, I know that there's a lot of belief that we're kind of on our own and that there's nobody who's fighting and that there's nobody even within these institutions that help and it's all over. I don't believe that. But and I could talk about various sort of messages and the fact that the disclosure is moving up more and more and more, and more people are waking up. But I do think fundamentally it's the consciousness of the population and the level of their anger and the level of their, you have to understand that a lot of us, some people here, I mean, Schiff, you've probably been aware of the Fed's activities for maybe a decade, easily. Like
2000 since high school, man. I saw that. Like that's when I got into. I was just thinking, like, wait a minute, they're printing money and bailing out the bankers. This is criminal activity. So I did research on the Fed and its history, and I was like, my goodness, these guys have been robbing people for centuries. You know, it's just,
and it drives you crazy because you realize that regular people, they just don't see it. And what the fuck are we supposed to do about this? You know, everything's, you know, when is the house of cards going to come down? They have so much power. The difference right now, my contention is the difference right now is that they're hoping that they can collapse the system and restructure it. I mean, look at what, you know, all the various riots that you've had, and the fact that you've had all the shutdown of the businesses with COVID. All these things are like real estate acquisitions. They've been trying to gain control over the economy. And so they're hoping that when, you know, they crash this entire thing, maybe they'll blame it on the Delta variant, maybe they'll blame it on this or that, doesn't fucking matter. They're hoping that people are going to be in enough fear that okay, now we're going to have universal basic income because the economy's collapse, and that, you know, they try to link it to maybe, you know, passports, right? Jab passports, and try to create a system around it. That's what they want to do. And their hope is that people are going to be so afraid that they're just going to go along with it because they don't feel like they have any other future. But the reality is that that is a rapidly shrinking population that is willing to go along with something like that. And you have to remember not only the insane people who are talking online, but people who you're experiencing, interacting with in your life, but also the people who you're not, who are quiet, very quiet people, not saying anything. What is their position? I can tell you, and I feel this. I mean, look, I bank on it completely. The population is done, but they're in, you know, you have the 5 stages, right, of grief, and you go through this processing. I mean, I can see it, you know, I can see it with my own father. Great guy, you know, very much with us on this stuff. It's taken time for him to start to come to terms with the fact that they're actually doing this deliberately. It's a very difficult thing for people to accept, because if you're not an evil person, you would never think, you're like, how are they so stupid? No, they're not stupid. They're evil. It's a big difference. So my contention is that their own need to collapse this is going to be their undoing, because it's going to completely reveal them, and they have no power once they're revealed. They're very small.
Let me ask you. I know you went over. I know you went over a lot, you know, and definitely a lot of it I'm aware of, and I agree with you. You know, you Primal. I know Foster kind of went off, but here's what I wanted to kind of was getting to too. Like right now, we have 2 political parties that are very popular, very known, and those are the kind of winners at almost every election. Now, as far as we know, elections is what's only going to determine what the laws and the outcome is going to be. Now, let's say after all this, there's unrest, civil unrest, or, you know, even after majority of almost 40% of the businesses are gone, according to Yelp. They closed after the zombie apocalypse. So what next party, or what the solution would be? Let's say if, you know, worse comes to worse, you know, what is really going to happen? Is it going to be the right taking, or let's say the guys that are, you know, like guys like us, right? We understand. I'm assuming everybody on the panel is right of the spectrum, the political spectrum. You know, so what would be like a major change, let's say, or in your prediction, how long is that going to take? It's going to be 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? That's what I'm kind of trying to get a better perspective.
No, I see the shifts. I think the next 6 months are going to be insane.
Well, you dropped the facts.
Yeah, I think that when we come out of spring, it's going to be a very different looking landscape in this country. Obviously, there's going to be tons and tons of work to do and a lot of internal cleanup. I don't think that we get the world, this sort of plague of people dealt with until maybe 2024. And I could frankly see a lot of things going on, you know, smoking out the deep undercover rats into the early 2030s. But once the consciousness of the population goes up, you're going to see a very, very different thing. Now, I mean, I can look, I've had my other shows where I've talked about some of these things, but I can, you know, do some speculating, put on a little bit of my like tinfoil
Yeah.
hat here for a second, if
Yeah.
that's what you're asking for. Trump isn't gone. Okay. I know some people are going to roll their eyes when they hear that, but I mean, if President Trump flies into an airspace, it's marked as Air Force One and air traffic control. He has a bigger security detail when he comes off a plane than Biden. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that he's secretly president and Biden's not. I'm not saying that because I don't believe that that's true. Okay. So don't worry about that. But what I'm inferring here is that if you're familiar with Cheyenne Mountain is a military base right outside of Colorado Springs. It's a top secret military base. It's been closed up since March 2020 to everybody. It's still closed up. And it's been widely reported that that Biden administration officials were turned back. They weren't allowed to enter the facility. Why was it such a big deal for Trump to create Space Force? Okay. There's a level of clearance that goes beyond general forces. All right. It's the Department of Energy clearance. And my sort of contention, my sort of inference would be that this isn't done. They don't have the big guns, so to speak. And the reason that there hasn't been overt action is because we have to get the population together. It's the reason that there wasn't other moves made last year. You have to get the population on the same page, otherwise you have a civil war. And so there's this rope-a-dope strategy as well, like just like Muhammad Ali used to do. You know, he used to lean back on the ropes a bit while he was getting hit. So big punches, you know, he'd be getting half the weight on him. They keep punching, and we're kind of taking it, and then they get open, they get vulnerable. This is a different kind of war. It's a different kind of strategy. You appear weak when you're strong, and you appear strong when you're weak. They're trying to appear strong. They're very weak. They're freaked out about little things. I think it's a matter of time, and I think that you're going to see, if you think for a second that even in general forces in the military, do you actually think, like, seriously, forget what the media tells you, which is a completely controlled information outlet. Do you actually think there are not generals and admirals within the military who are very, very upset about what's going on? Admiral Rogers, in charge of the NSA, which collects about 80-something% of the intelligence budget, literally collects every single bit of data in the country. Admiral Rogers, after Trump's election in 2016, goes and hands him information about he was being spied on. Okay. I don't perceive what's going on as a complete concession that this is over. And I don't think that Trump's talking or acting like somebody who believes this is over. But if you have an attack from a foreign country on your election system and across the entire country in multiple levels, how are you going to fight them without destroying the country in the process when they've so heavily infiltrated it? Let's see what happens. That's my perspective.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start wrapping up here shortly, guys, because I do have to get up. I do want to say too, if Pat had said earlier, Google Pat Stedman, and you'll understand why Pat Stedman has a little more skin in the game than a lot of people. I'm not sure, but I think everybody on the panel just check out Pat Stedman, and I'll just leave it at that. And then also, I have a serious question for Pat. And how is the shit hits the fan going to affect Girl Game?
I think that you're going to see a lot of girls pretend to be very trad all of a sudden.
Okay, that's
Aww, that is so cute.
Hypergamy.
Yeah.
No,
The words of-
trad-pergamy. That's what it is.
that is
Trad-pergamy.
Trad-pergamy. In the words of
Oh,
Rolo Moses, you know.
Pat, were you in the Capitol riot?
He doesn't have to say.
Don't even ask.
Don't incriminate.
You don't
Okay.
ask that, man. You know,
It just popped up.
YouTube algorithm.
NBC's New Jersey relationship strategist charged in Capitol riot.
Hey, we're not gonna say it here.
YouTube
Okay.
algorithm, man. YouTube
I mean, so I'm not even allowed to say that. I didn't know.
You're starting to glow in the dark, bro.
That's why I just asked you just to go ahead and you can just.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
can,
Wait a minute. He didn't know. He didn't know. So
Let's
he didn't
just-
know.
Yeah, I didn't know.
let's just leave it there.
All right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's been a good stream, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm actually going to go to bed early tonight, somewhat early, but it's been intense. I think it's been a great conversation, and I appreciate everybody here. Again, the topic was girl game. I don't know how we got on this, but we did. And organic conversations are what this channel is about. And where they go, I let them go. And where we ended up now is just fine. But, you know, I do want, you know, anybody who hasn't seen this stream or coming in now and you're interested in girl game, go back to the beginning and check it out. Really.
First half was girl game. Yeah.
Yeah. First the second half.
Well, Tony, my bad, Tony. I mean to cut you off, man, but it's quite simple how we got to this. You know, we started talking about women running game and all that, and then the topic of the laws and the system got brought up, and then like from the topic of the system, it transitioned to like the bankers and the Fed and all that. So
yeah,
that's how we got here.
I understand that. That's why I say organic conversation is great. I mean,
oh yeah,
where it goes, and that's fine. And that's why we're here. You know, every stream, if you look at any stream, I don't care what it is, but even like MD streams, the topic will be the topic. And then it will morph into what people are. In other words, it always morphs into a conversation of something else. And that's fine.
Tony, could I really quickly say just a couple things, not related to that. It's just completely different. Is it okay if it's just like 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Well, you know, I just going over, I wrote down a couple points. You know, I wish Primalman and Foster was here and we had more time. Obviously, I jumped on, you know, a couple minutes late, you know, but, you know, with the replacement, you know, they have immigration to do that. So whatever the stock, whatever the thinking, whatever the patriotism of this country remained, it's slowly going away. China, in my opinion, is a fascist capitalistic system. You know, there's definitely no hope. What Pat said about China is definitely on point. You know, no superpower, I think, is inevitable. You know, big major empires, you know, have fell. You know, at some point, the British Empire, you know, had land that the sun never set on. You know, so that's just in my opinion. I don't wish for that future, but we'll see how it happens. You know, last elections, you know, was a huge slap on our face. And this should have been, you know, a huge eye opener. I know I discussed that with a couple guys before, you know, and I mean, you know, Waco, you know, Venezuela. Now there's a huge public change against their government. You know, it's starting in 2018 or 17. You know, Florida, man, you're aware of it, you know, Tony. But Florida is the second most populous state in all of U.S. I think for the past 5 years now. You know, and your governor is pretty based, but you know, he almost didn't win the last election. You know what I mean? So, you know, media and you know, I mean, there's you know a few more things that I wanted to go over, but I'm gonna kind of end it over here. You know, yeah, just kind of wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, let's go around the panel real quick. We'll start with Hold the Truth.
Well, I just want to say, man, you know, as always, you know, thank you to Tony for the panel. And, you know, someone even told me, man, why are you talking to Tony? You know, Tony supports that one convention. I'm like, dude, what's in an age where men are being attacked 24/7? You know what I'm saying? What's the problem with a couple guys hosting a convention where they just talk and have conversation. You know, if you're not going, you're not going. But you know, to me, man, it's been an honor, and we got to understand, we got to give the people credit. You know, people are mobilizing. Think about it. The last vote election, there were far less people that showed up. Then before that one, there was far less. Yet people are mobilizing. People are starting homesteads. You know, in the case of Tony, people are building islands out of the money they put in their leather jackets. You know, so we have a lot going on. And somebody told me, so I'm gonna just say it. Shout out to Timbo. He told me to just say this line quick: like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Go to Caduceus.
Yeah, I've just been hopping in and out of the discussion. Lots of interesting discussions. Seeing it go from girl game and succubi into the progression of the world was really cool. Just glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Also, too, I want to give shout outs. Anybody watching, go to Caduceus channel.
Yeah, vital message.
And I think I have it in the description of the video. I'm pretty sure that it's in.
You do, yeah. I got 2 streams up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a regular schedule, but I'll put up an announcement a couple days in advance. If I decide
also
to do one.
subscribe to Hold the Truth Hostage. I have his channel in the video description, and it's also, I believe, the Black Pill Truth is the other channel. Hold the Truth.
Yeah. I took the philosophy channel. You know, we're trying, man. You know, trying to spread what Tony's doing. Just men talking, and we don't always agree. You know, Pat is getting offended. Anybody don't call Pat Daddy Pat. You know, takes high offense.
Pat Daddy.
High offense to that, man.
Oh yeah, and I just thought you gave me a thought. Just the format of the stream, having a topic discussed, and then letting people come on is really empowering people, and it helps people come to the conclusions on their own instead of having it jammed down their throat.
Yeah, exactly. This is not rule 0. Okay. I'll just,
I need to dress like Crash Bandicoot.
I don't watch them, and somebody had sent me that clip I played earlier, and so shots were fired, and I just fired back. So
what? So if we're gonna be rule 0, are you gonna get a Crash Bandicoot costume, or are you gonna get a beanie?
Oh no, beanie. When it gets cold, I wear the beanies. It's because I don't have hair, not because I want to hide my hairline, Rollo. Anyways, let's go to JP. JP, any last words?
Yeah, Tony, man, it's been an honor. Pat Stedman, nice to meet you, man. Had a fun conversation and all that. Know we got a little bit off topic, that's okay and all that, but
and John,
no, I just wanted to say thanks, Tony, for having me on. I really appreciate it. Always enjoy being on, and I hope you keep doing these streams. I really enjoy them. And Pat, thank you so much for your insights. I enjoyed them and found them very insightful. Same with Hold the Truth. So peace out, guys.
Yeah, and also too, coming in the fall, I'll be going back on Saturday nights also. So it'll be Thursday night reality check like we are now, and then Saturday nights is get it off your chest. So that's when it gets a little wild. So it's get it off your chest Saturday night, coming probably in, I'm going to say in November sometime. So we'll be doing Thursdays and Saturdays and having more special guests. So if anybody is watching now, I had Elliot Hulse on Monday.
Now, is it Rollo going to be on next Saturday, right? You're going to Rollo on? Yeah.
Rollo is welcome on any time, and I mean that sincerely. He is welcome on any time. I have no issue with that.
Hey, Tony, I mean, before you start those streams, man, can you please let the people know that you're white? Because, remember a few streams ago, man, we had a problem with that. So.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I know, I am, and it's been a problem because I've been looking in the mirror now for probably almost a solid month. So let's go to Pat Stedman and final words.
Well, as always, Tony, thank you for having me on. It's just always such a good time, and the conversations always get interesting. And I think for the people who watch this all the way through, you might ask, well, how do you get from girl game to, as Michael was saying in the chat, Armageddon game? What is the connection between these things? As above, so below. All these things that are happening in our micro personal lives are reflected in the macro. And so what I would like to sort of close on here is what girl game does to you as a man is it plays on your shadow. It plays on these elements of yourself that you haven't acknowledged in yourself, desires, needs, and the girl will use that. And because it's unconscious, you don't see it. And she kind of pulls you in, she programs you, she gets you trapped in this very toxic dynamic. It's the same thing we're experiencing on the macro. Everything that we're going through on the macro, it's what you might call collective shadow work. Okay, this is stuff that's been going on for a long time, and we haven't paid attention to it. It's been a slow rot. We haven't taken it seriously. And so the work that we do on ourselves as men, yeah, it gets you a girl, but it also changes society. It changes the world. And if you want to prevent things that are going on in the macro from happening generations from now, you are responsible for doing this work on yourself, bringing up your self-awareness, taking responsibility. We stopped taking responsibility as a nation and frankly as a planet, and that's why we're here. It won't happen again. So thank you.
I love it. I love it.
Respect to Big Daddy Pat, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Respect to everybody on the panel, and I appreciate everyone here. And we'll wrap it up. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and come back next Thursday. And you never know, I might have another special guest coming soon. But Pat, thank you very much for coming on tonight. It's always a pleasure, and I appreciate you, man. You know that. So much love, honor, and respect to everybody. And we'll see you next Thursday.
Peace, peace.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah,